Yeah, I can't hear anything now.
All the meetings to order. Roll call, please. Here.
Mr. Ambling. Here. Mr. Greenfield.
Here.
Mr. Grady.
Here.
Mr. McQueen.
Here.
Mr. Barrow.
Here.
Mrs. Barrow. Yes,
Notice that this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News and Courier News, filed with the municipal clerk and posted on the municipal bulletin board on December 27th, 2021. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
Jackie County. Oh, okay. I have a proclamation here to read for Jackie DeSanto, who is a clerical assistant in the construction office. Are you there? Can you wait there? No, there's her name. Where's Jackie? Okay. So I will read the proclamation. Whereas Jackie DeSanto, clerical assistant in construction, zoning, and housing, is a tremendous asset to our construction, zoning, and housing department and to the municipality overall. And whereas Jackie worked diligently on obtaining a substantial grant from the borough with regard to shared services for fire prevention in Bernards Township. And whereas though Jackie has never written a request for a grant before, she excelled in it with her devotion, skill set, knowledge, and effortless compassion for her job, no matter how challenging things can get. And whereas the grant was successful and the borough received $46,000, now therefore honorary change to notice, Mayor of the Borough of Bernardsville and representing the Borough Council, do hereby congratulate and acknowledge Jackie DeSanto for her hard work in securing the fire prevention shared services grant. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone.
There's almost
Thank you.
half cost of the shared service, which is just really outstanding. So thank you. We are thrilled that you took on that initiative.
Thanks, Mary. I just add something that Jeff Price, a former director in the department, saw it on the agenda and reached out to thank the council as well and to reinforce all the work that went into it and how long it actually took. So this is also like to note that Jackie's the first recipient of our general award, which is something we're starting to call to attention to the community. All the good work that our staff does, things that when they go the extra miles, they go above and beyond, and it allows us to continue to punch above our weight class, as I say.
Yeah, I love the name going the extra mile. Yeah. That's good. Thank you for bringing that up and starting that process. It's a great thing to do. We do have a lot of great staff. Excellent. All right. Next on our agenda is the council review and discussion on the area of redevelopment, the study that was done for the planning board. I'll turn it over to Tom and Chris. So I don't know. Here it is.
What I did.
I don't know if Joe, if you wanted to go first and just kind of give an overview of the process.
Sure. Where do you want me to stand?
It's close to the owl.
Center camera.
I can't. Introduce yourself.
So, thank you, Mayor. Joseph DeMarco, Redevelopment Council for the Borough of Bernardsville. I'm also a resident. I'm here today, though, in the redevelopment capacity as the attorney. So, as everyone is well aware, there was a hearing from the planning board on July 14th, where they considered the testimony and the evidence of each study.
Okay.
Somehow, you opened up another window and it starts replaying. Okay, we're good.
You're good? So as I was saying, the planning board conducted a hearing. It was a full hearing. At one point in time, there, including the board members, there were 250 people that either viewed, and that number really did not change. In May, it went down to 220, 225. It began at 7:30. It finished around 11:30. There was a lot of back and forth and a lot of questions. At the end, the planning board then made a recommendation. They embodied that in a resolution, which was sent to this body, which is a recommendation to say that the criteria in the law that says whether or not a property is a area in need of redevelopment, in their opinion, was not satisfied. So they're recommending to this board not to declare it. What does that mean for this board? Any action by the planning board in this capacity, right? So where you send them something to consider or to look at, they act as the somewhat hearing officer, right? So they conduct the public hearing. They spend the 4 hours that this board has other things to do. That's what they exist for. They heard from Chris Colley, topology, who was the expert retained by the council and the planning board to do that review. They heard comments from residents. They heard comments from myself, from the planning board attorney, Steve Warner. That's all. What is the next step is this council has the right to do three things, right? You can accept their recommendation as is. You can modify it or adjust it, or you can reject it and proceed to say, no, we want to do this anyway. If you accept it, relatively simple, you're adopting their findings. If you modify or reject it, you need to put some meat on the bone, as they say, to explain why that is, right? So that's one of the reasons why we're here. Myself and Mr. Colley, who was the planner, who authored the report. So that's what's before this board today. A couple clarifications, if I may. There were some comments that were far afield that didn't make sense by the public. Nothing malicious or egregious, but just not necessarily understanding the process. So I think that's important, right? So in the process, what is an area in need of redevelopment? I think that got lost. All it does is say that this board, based upon a review by an expert, a planner, finds the area to be an area that should be redeveloped. And the state lists various categories or factors, A to G, right? H, sorry, my alphabet's bad. A to H, right? And some of it is if the site's contaminated, some of it is if it just hasn't been developed because it's got a lot of diverse ownership, right? Odd lots that don't make sense. Obsolescence, which was the case that was before us. Smart growth is this umbrella that covers all of it. So how did we get to the hearing, right? I think some people forgot that. This board took a vote on a resolution and said, hey, we have a downtown area. Not to bring myself into it, but when I sat there in like 2012 as a councilman, we talked about redevelopment of downtown, right? And that conversation has been going on for 20 years. This board picked a lot, a block, a section, and said, this is a good area to redevelop, right? There was all these questions about, well, why this? Are you going to come to my house on Old Colony Road or someone else's house on Meadow Street or something? It's right. That's not the purpose, right? This board made a decision to say it's a premier parcel in the center of the downtown. Can we look at it to be redeveloped? Planner went out and said, under the criteria, it does meet that. And if you declared it an area in need of redevelopment, there is no obligation to do anything else. Right? There is no obligation to take another step. You can just say that's an area in need of redevelopment. it sends a little message to people who want to invest or people who want to develop, like, okay, this town recognizes that. The owner of that property can go to the zoning board, can go to the planning board, they can redevelop it. Or at another meeting, at another time, you can have a discussion as to whether or not you want to create a redevelopment plan. So whole other different discussion, whole other different process. That deals with what gets built there, right? The zoning, the size, the scope, the color, and everything else. That is not the decision in front of you or with the planning board. All they said was essentially, does a lot in the center of Bernardsville isn't an area to be in need of redevelopment? As a layman, I think everyone down in Bernardsville says, yes, the downtown needs to be redeveloped. It's not a layman's decision. It's really the planner who guides us in that, right? It's not me as a lawyer. It's not Tom as the BA or Jack as the town attorney. It's really the planner, the expert who has done this before. He's here tonight, not necessarily to give a full testimony or another hearing. That hearing was had. He's here to answer questions, to clarify some things, right? Because I know there's a lot of chatter about it and things of that nature. The other thing that came up that I just want to point out is there were a couple comments that were very odd to me about there's some cost that the town is going to do. Like this was some benefit to the property owner, like somehow or another, you're going to take my tax dollars and the town's tax dollars and you're going to fix these problems. Not what happens, right? It's not what happens. The tax dollars that were spent were really on the professional time, right? So to develop the study, to guide the study, to have the hearing, things of that nature. No dollars funneled from this borough to the property owner or any interested party to fix the problem or to develop the property or anything else. It's not what the area needed redevelopment does. So I hope that clarifies in some respects. I don't know if there's any questions or anything about what's before you tonight or anything I can help you with.
One
Sure.
question for me. Does, if we were to name that area, not even that area, any new area that's deemed an area of redevelopment, does that get added to the current areas of redevelopment, or is it sort of its own standalone property? In other words, we have a plan.
Yeah.
I just want to know how. It
It just gets declared, and what happens is there's another back side thing. If you declared an area needed redevelopment, I would take your resolution with Anthony. We send it down to the DCA. The DCA looks at it and says, okay, that makes sense where it is. Quite frankly, train station, downtown area, they're going to sign off on it, right? If you picked something afar afield, the DCA may sit there and on their general map of where you should be redeveloping as a council, this is an area that they would sign
This
off.
was last page, I was just gonna say, you might want to tell people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, the Division of Consumer Affairs. Yeah, Community Affairs, sorry. They oversee things like that, right? The statute requires that any action gets filed with them so they can record it, and because they do tracking on a larger scale, right? For transit, for planning purposes, for statewide purposes. So to that point, right? So this is 2 lots, 3 old lots, but 2 lots. If you go back and look at Quimby Lane, which was multiple lots, you could have said, I agree with the planning board that these 7 lots don't belong or do belong, but this one doesn't, right? You have that also. So they're standalone lots in and of themselves. There is a consistency though, that why'd you pick this lot or this project? Because you picked one right across the street, right? So you picked the bigger area right there. So it's in the zone of where your master plan, your new zoning ordinances, your focus to try to invigorate is all in that Olcott Square, right? The Olcott Circle. That's where everything, the zoning board and the planning board and this council would focus on. Anything else?
So, yeah, can I just ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
The benefit of having
any area of redevelopment is so that the borough can have more control over what is built there, size, look, feel, color, whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
And then in addition, potentially a different revenue source from a borough perspective as well.
Yes, so it's the key that opens the door to that, right? So there is your zoning regs that I can go online and Codex or whatever, how you keep your ordinances. I can go find the zoning ordinances and say, this is what I can do with my house, this is what I can do with my property, my commercial site and everything else. This gets treated differently and allows you to open up the other sections of the book that allow for redevelopment plans, redevelopment agreements, almost spot zoning, right? Where you can just drill in to say, okay, what can we do with this lot? It is a common tool nowadays in New Jersey. There are towns that do it a lot, but they have a lot of defunct or obsolete properties. There are towns that dabble in it. A lot of Somerset County towns do it. And the reason is it does focus and give the board through your professionals and management team an ability to really work the project, like really be hands-on.
Well-
So that, and if I may, I don't know if you had another question.
Yeah, Joe, I just have a comment. So I think the important thing to note here is the area redesignation doesn't mandate that we do anything. What it does is give us additional choices in our toolbox. And I know Tom has a presentation today to talk about what those choices are.
So that's absolutely correct. The other thing that gets lost is that property owner or that future property owner is free to tear that building down tomorrow. I know that, I said it, I'm sorry.
That was going to be my clarifying question.
Yeah, but they're free to do it, as is the property owner across the street or anyone else, right? The landscaping place can tear the building down tomorrow as a property owner and build it to within the current zoning restriction, right?
What are the current?
So in that particular lot,
Oh, that's.
yeah.
Oh,
So in that particular lot, you're gonna hear from people, but essentially it's your downtown core. So when that home was looking for it, it's your downtown core zone is what we refer to that as. So that doesn't change, right? So you approve it as an area needed redevelopment. You didn't change that right to someone come down and do it. So the councilwoman's point, you don't have any control over that, right? The generic zoning for the whole area, which controls, which sometimes is inartful because you're zoning larger portion, right? So I live in a one-family neighborhood. Not every one family looks the same. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. Some tear them down, some put newer ones, right? But it's designed to say, we're not really going to worry about what color the curtains are. We're really just going to say we want this to be. So in this one, you're allowed to pick the curtain. All right.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, Tom and Chris, you're out.
Mary Jane, can you hear me okay in the room while Tom's getting set up?
Okay, Chris, this is your investigation. And just to tell everybody who you are.
Of course.
Yeah.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Colley. I'm a planner with the firm Apology. We were hired by the borough for the purpose of preparing this preliminary investigation, which Joe just did up nicely. Thanks, Joe. This is our third presentation of this type, or third study of this type that we've done with the borough. To start my stopwatch, about 12 minutes for you. Keep me honest. So what I'm going to do this evening is.
Can we just check real quickly? Chad, can you hear him okay? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I can hear him fine right now. That's fine.
Thank you. And you can see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Great. So what I'm going to do for you this evening is give an abbreviated summary of the presentation that I made to the planning board back on July 14th. The purpose of that presentation was to inform the planning board as to whether or not it was my opinion if the properties that we studied qualified as an area needed redevelopment. That was the sort of fourth step in an overall 5-step process. The fifth step is what we're at really this evening or whenever the governing body makes an action. So I made a presentation recommending that it was my opinion the properties did qualify. The planning board sent the resolution back to the governing body, disagreeing with my recommendation, frankly, and stating that it was their opinion that they did not rise to the level of being an area needed redevelopment. So I won't walk you through all of the detailed history there, but suffice it to say, in preparing our report, we did as much research as we could to understand the property conditions. We reviewed borough records, fire, police, planning. We visited the site on several occasions. We took a bunch of photos, most of which you'll see this evening. So I did say it's an abbreviated version, so I'm going to sort of skip the history section that we had in there just for time. But we're just making sure we all know what we're talking about. These are the two properties that we're talking about, block 125, lots 1 and 3, roughly an acre based on the assessor records. Just for clarity, lot 1 used to be 2 lots, lots 1 and 2. Those were merged at some point, which is why you might have known it to be 3 lots, but my study only describes them as 2. So to get into the meat of it, it's a very specific process that we go through to determine whether or not a property qualifies as area to develop.
Chris, can I ask you a question before you move on?
Yeah.
Can you go back to the previous slide? It's something that I didn't ask last time you presented this. Go back to the overlay, please.
This
Right there. Is the building on the left on the Mount Airy Road, is that over the property line? I noticed your green line, or is that just a reflection of your drawing?
It's just an imperfect projection because of the angle. Let me take this. It's,
Thank you.
So as I was saying, there's a very specific process that you have to go through to determine whether or not a property meets any of the qualifies as area needed redevelopment. There are 8 criteria, which are laid out in the local redevelopment and housing law. We found that the property qualified on the basis, the properties qualified on the basis of 2 separate criteria, criterion B and criterion H. And I'm going to go through those in a bit of detail later on. So I won't read them out to you right now, but those are the 2 criteria that we're going to be discussing actually in the evaluation. Just worth noting, it's a little bit of background. Pre-law is like case law about how properties are determined to be an area needed redevelopment. And what the courts say in a nutshell, you see up there, it's that the municipality needs to do more than simply say this is an area needed redevelopment. Period. It needs to do more than just saying this meets criteria A, B, and C. Full stop, end of story. And that's why you have this whole process where planners go out and write reports, and, go to the planning boards and make testimony. So you really do need to analyze the specific conditions of that property. So I mentioned how we were going to be talking a bit about criteria D, which was really sort of fundamental piece of our analysis. And one of the things that we focused on in criteria D was this term faulty arrangement. Which is, these words and statutes can be a little abstract. So we try and find what we can to help us understand what faulty arrangement means, what other words and statutes mean. So, we look at case law, we look at other places where faulty arrangement has been utilized for the basis of the designation. I'm not going to read these out loud, but generally what we found in prior cases that have been upheld, that faulty arrangement has been defined to mean for layout, for circulation, parking areas, blind spots, and driveways, things of that nature. So we're informed by that as we consider what faulty arrangement means. We'll see what that's for in a second. We also look back at some of the prior studies that have been done for the borough and how faulty arrangement have been defined there in areas where that were declared to be in need of redevelopment. And we found some similar things, faulty arrangement relating to line turns, relating to poor circulation or layout. So that's background. What's the property? What are the criteria? What do some of the words in the criteria mean? In terms of the actual evaluation, we looked at each of the 2 properties independently, which is customarily how things are done. It was our finding and our recommendation that the property is qualified as an area needed redevelopment under criteria D and H. So to begin with criteria D, and this is where I will actually pause on this for a moment so we can all look at it together. Criteria D defined as areas with buildings or improvements which by reason of, and I'll read the words that we found to apply, dilapidation, obsolescence, faulty arrangement or design, or any combination of these or other factors are detrimental to the safety, health, and morals of the public. Yeah. So 3 sort of key points for each of these properties that we're going to focus on: faulty arrangement, dilapidation, and obsolescence. So as it relates to faulty arrangement, we're really focusing on the parking area, again, sort of being informed by previous research and whatnot, and seeing how that parking area functions, the lack of circulation markings, the lack of striping, accessibility issues, other things which I'll show on subsequent pictures. But it's generally our finding that the buildings and improvements exhibit faulty arrangement, which is detrimental to health, safety, and welfare, really through the connection of increases the possibility of conflict, accidents in the parking area through pedestrians or motorists, and that is an unsafe condition. So this is the part where I'm going to kind of accelerate from how detailed we went with the planning board, just some time. But what we did was we looked at how the site plan had been approved in the most recent filing that we could find with the borough, versus how the parking area looks now and what sort of types of circulation infrastructure are missing or not there. And we identified a bunch of these discrepancies. I will walk through some of them. There are supposed to be arrows to indicate how folks are supposed to get around the parking area. In the absence of arrows, there's uncertainty in terms of how you move around. Areas like on the left here that are intended to be one-way become two-way. That's sort of contrary to the intent of the design. Creates a likelihood and an opportunity for pedestrians, motorists to conflict with one another. If we stay focused on the same area, areas that are supposed to have curbing to provide pedestrians with refuge area or to define circulation, curbing is missing. That allows sort of haphazard vehicular circulation throughout the parking area. There are areas where parking was never shown or approved, where parking has now come into practice or come into existence. Again, that sort of serves to constrain the circulation pattern. I think especially here up at number 6, there's parking here, which sort of aligns with the exit. This arrow is actually missing. So if you can imagine, if I'm someone who's turning in here and I'm not familiar with this, 1, I don't see the arrow that's here, right? So I might not make that turn as tight. But 2, I also have parking here along this corridor, which is not sort of reflected on the design. 2 sort of related conditions of faulty arrangement that we also find detrimental to health and safety are these sort of blind spots. You might know this one. This is going out onto Mike Road. And then you might know this one down here in Mount Airy. So you can imagine coming down this 35 miles an hour. And then being the pedestrian who's moving out of that parking space. And not be seen. Last sort of 2 related points. Just gonna do one time. There's a lack of pedestrian infrastructure in the parking area to signify to visitors how to get around. So we've highlighted that for the 3 handicap spaces. And I want you to look at this handicap space here, which is the closest one to the entrance of either of the buildings on 3. Someone who's leaving that space would walk into the vehicular parkway. Now remember, this is supposed to be a one-way, but it's not marked. People use this 2-way. They have to sort of come through the main entryway, and they have to make their way down around here. There's no indication to the drivers where pedestrians might be, where they should be. That's sort of lack of like basic pedestrian infrastructure and parking area, which can be unsafe for visitors. So I mentioned 3 points for each lot. So that was faulty arrangement. So the lack of the second argument relates to obsolescence. And what we're talking about here with obsolescence is accessibility, really. The buildings, only one of the 2 buildings on lot has an accessible accessible entrance for people with disabilities, mobility impairments, things of that nature. That's going to limit the accessibility of those buildings for who can use them, frankly, who can benefit from them. Sort of universal design, accessible design is a component of modern development, modern design. So we find that the presence of inaccessible and obsolete buildings is detrimental to health, safety, and welfare, and would exclude users. This is the building on what was old lot 2. You can see the entrances from that accessibility. My last point on this lot is dilapidation. And again, here we're focusing mainly on improvements in the rear of the property, potholes, pavement cracking. This is stuff that can, like, I don't know, seem kind of minor or tick-tack, but it's something that exacerbates over time. If it's snowing, it's tougher to plow, ice, it's more likely to trip, have erosion, soil runoff, and things of that nature. So we find this dilapidated improvements to be detrimental to safety and welfare. So I'm going to go over time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of go more quickly through lot 3. It's a very similar argument. Very similar point, same kind of thing, dilapidation, obsolescence, faulty arrangement, detrimental to safety, health, and welfare. We did a very similar analysis here looking at the parking lot infrastructure. Again, it was our conclusion that that exhibited faulty arrangement, detrimental to safety, health, and welfare. The lack of striping, marking, directional arrows, sort of modern, common things that you find in a parking area like this. Again, contrasting it to the
the entrance and exits. Is that also part of the faulty arrangement because they're so close to the intersection? You know, I mean, in terms of safety and
maybe, but I don't know. I don't think so. That's not. We didn't really do like a measurement, like probably not, frankly. Yeah, I don't know if the location of the entrances. I think maybe the design of the entrances would contribute to that, but I don't have any reason to believe that their distance is
I have a question. With the faulty arrangement and past the lessons and whatever that word is, also be with the sidewalk encroachment of the building in lot 1, where you can't, a wheelchair cannot get down the sidewalk there. You have a picture of it, and nor can someone with a stroller, or frankly, if someone weighs over 80 pounds, they're gonna have to walk out to the side of the street around a busy corner in order to get around to the other side of a blind turn in a dangerous intersection.
I'm glad you brought that up. This is sort of glossed over that image, but that is exactly why we included that image there. The width there, I don't have offhand, but it's certainly less than 3 feet. We'll sort of want to swing around the pole to make it around the corner. So yes, it's a good point. I think it's something.
So let me just clarify something while we're here. So if we were, let's look forward, and let's just say that there was a circumstance we did say it was an area in need of redevelopment, and we put a redevelopment plan in place. We could mandate that the front structure was done according to setbacks, and if there was not an area redevelopment designation made, they could redevelopment based on sort of historical footprints. Is that a correct statement?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, that is.
That is correct, that.
Yeah. So as we consider it in the tools that we have, and that's really what this is about for me, is having these tools. If this property gets redeveloped, I think that's a problem that we need to solve.
So following that line of logic, just the question I have looking, because I have a similar question that Diane did. So if this were to be named an area of need of redevelopment, then would these issues all be resolved, including this one? Or need to be resolved in including this one?
So again, area need redevelopment designation gets you to open the door.
Okay.
Redevelopment plan is the next step, and in the redevelopment plan, you would have the ability to control because of where this sits, right? So in the core zone, the setback for a front may be 10 feet. I'm not exact, but that may work when you're further down, but when you're on the corner, maybe you want it to be 15 feet, right? A lot of urban design, you know, we're not urban, but the center feels like it. put bump outs, right, there were, this is more, so you could mandate a above normal or above regular zoning pedestrian area for safety in the redevelopment plan, right? Chris could write one that says that has to have a landing pad where, you know, of 20 square feet or something, so that pedestrians can be visible and make turns. You would also eliminate hedges and things that are in the right of ways and things like that. So, and that is, not to beat the dead horse, sorry, but that's what the designation starts the process to allow. Otherwise, it would be a pre-existing building that would stay and be grandfathered in, and that sidewalk would be like that for as long as the buildings.
I have another question here, and I didn't want to stop your 12 minutes, so I was waiting, but since we've already stopped your 12 minutes, that's the street light post there,
Yes, that's the traffic light.
and then, yes, traffic light, yes.
There's more than one, there's more than one hole.
There is one on the other side on facing 202.
Okay. And then what are the other two structures, whatever they
So
are?
those are your utility manholes.
Okay,
So one based on shape is probably water, the other one might be electric.
that's what I was wondering. And this, are these, well, I mean, water, electric owned by companies, but is that, the traffic light, is that owned by the state? And they put this there at some point, or is it owned by the borough, even though it's a state road?
So that is a combination of an intersection of the state road
And a county road, right? So they own this, and they decided where to put it when they did.
So every intersection of this nature has what's referred to as a jurisdictional map. So your engineer would be the best person to answer that. It's on file, so you know who repairs what, who files what, who's responsible for what.
And I believe it is DOT, so in other words, we're trying to do something with the box that regulates the light. Yeah, my house is big as a lead.
Oh, you absolutely cannot touch that light without DOT.
Right,
Because it controls their traffic.
yeah.
And when it was put in, I mean, we had to approve this, or we had no say in anything? They just
So
went-
Gina, this was approved by the planning board, I believe in 1991. I won't comment on previous boards approvals. I could say that I would be very reluctant to approve. Well, I can tell you right now, our new zoning laws would not allow this because I believe that we have 12 or 15-foot minimum sidewalks mandated in our borough. So I would feel pretty confident that this would not get approved under our current zoning laws.
And this is a highly trafficked area. All the kids go from the train.
It's dangerous too, because cars have zigzag.
Yeah. I mean, it's really a bad.
It's the worst intersection.
But-
Chris, it's for you, based on the criteria. So how common, I need to give a few specific examples, but how common are D&H used as the criteria for redevelopment? That's my first part. The second, this might be for Joe, but when we name the other areas in the borough as areas of redevelopment, which criteria are those in violation of?
Sure. D is fairly common. I'd say the most common ones you see are probably A and D, but it really does depend on the scenario. The other study I'm trying to think back to, but I'm remembering a combination of D, which is the vacancy one, D, which we're talking about, E, which is the one that relates to title, H. I don't remember A, but
Each of
it's a couple years ago.
Each of the sub areas within, when you had their own criteria set.
And it was a combination of all the Gs. Thank you.
So if you'll allow me, I'm trying to get to the end.
Sorry, can we just ask for some looking back on that and see what the areas of redevelopment would be, and I think Audi, both, what was the criterion to make them areas of redevelopment?
Sure, Audi I know was partially A.
we'll look it up. While you continue, I can look it up right.
Thank you. That's-
So I think that was.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, I was sort of making a point that there's similar accessibility issue on this property, in terms of there being a lack of accessible entrances into buildings. Similar sort of route that somebody from the handicap space here can take, on foot through the traffic. Obsolescence again, based on a lack of accessibility and a lack of opportunity for people to utilize these spaces if they can't navigate one of these entrances. Worth noting, there is one accessible entrance on the building, that's on Mindworth Road on the far side. That doesn't allow you to access the building, however, there's a sign sort of directed to the post elsewhere. So again, here we have some obsolescence related to a lack of accessibility. We did see what we would consider to be dilapidation in the basement of this building, opportunities for water intrusion. You can sort of see the sky, the sun in there. There was a leak going on in the basement the day that we were down there. So those are conditions of dilapidation, old growth, things like that. That would be detrimental. And then it's sort of similar condition in the parking lot that we saw in our office space with dilapidated improvements. As I said before, the other one would be detrimental. So same conclusion, smoke pollution, property qualifies criteria D, buildings improvements, obsolescence, dilapidation, bulk detrimental health, safety, and welfare. So criteria H is the other one, and that we apply. Criteria H states the designation of delineated area is consistent with smart growth planning principles adopted pursuant to law or regulation. So, one of the first things you notice about this site when you evaluated is its location downtown on this key corner. That's sort of been articulated by council members a few moments ago. And smart growth principles are about focusing development into existing centers, into mixed use centers, into places of transit access and infrastructure. We find that this site really exhibited a lot of those characteristics, and we don't have a destination around it. So I'm just not done now. Our conclusion finding was D&H with all properties, as I noted. This is the map that we submitted. I'd be remiss if I didn't close by reminding the council that the planning board came to a different conclusion than us, right? And that's sort of what takes us here to our final step in this process about your action to accept, reject, or modify their recommendation. So that's it for me.
So
Thanks for listening.
to that, to your question, if you want. So the alley, 65 North County Road was A, B, D, E, which is the condition of the buildings, the obsolete nature of it.
B is vacancy.
B
B is title.
Yeah, B is vacant, and D was titled because there was questions about the easement in the background. On the Quimby Lane, remember there are multiple lots, but consistently, almost every lot used criteria D. When I say almost all but one, all of the lots used criteria E. Except for 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe about 10 of those. All of them used H, and one did use B. Most of the lots, the majority of them were B and E. And then there's this hidden letter out there that allows you to exclude a lot that's not, if it's part of the bigger parcel. Yeah.
So Joe, I just want to clarify, and I'm sorry if I cut you off. It's hard for me to see because I'm getting a little delay. I apologize. Did I cut you off, Joe?
You're good.
So I just want to clarify that the way that the state regulations are written, if any property meets any, I think they use the word or criteria, it doesn't matter whether or not they can be fixed or not. Everything can be fixed with time, money, and effort. That allows the borough to send this signal at the very minimum to do nothing other than send the signal that this is an area in need of redevelopment. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, it is. You don't need multiple criteria. One is sufficient. And one of the reasons why areas are declared in area in need of redevelopment is the lack of maintenance, which just buildings that made sense 25 years ago don't necessarily make sense today.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions that was writing down. So, Chris, from a pure general topology perspective, when you're looking at an area of redevelopment, do you ever go inside the buildings or is it only an exterior view? So you went inside these buildings as well, and all of them, that's, again, every single one, they do. Inside.
Well, I didn't go in every single square foot of every building, because there's doctor's offices in there, but I certainly went to all three of the buildings there.
Do we, well, let me not ask that question yet. What was in the decision and the criterion, same thing and perspective, same thing for planning board and council. We're looking at this from the exact same, from a legal perspective, same point of view, same.
Yeah, you're limited.
criteria.
Yeah, sure. You're limited in your review, right? So you can't just do it because you want to do it. You can't do it because you think it's a good thing, right? You use the same basis, right? Hence why we hire a professional planner. In this matter, there were two planners present at the planning board hearing. I think that's important to note. You're an everyday planner, and I apologize to John Zabel for that, but he is our longtime municipal borough planner. He also reviewed and he did make some comments at the end of the hearing where he confirmed the findings made by Chris. So essentially you had two planners who provided their opinion that the area did satisfy the criteria. Not all the criteria, but the criteria. So you're limited in, you may be really good taxes at the end. We're not there, right? That's not a motivating factor. It's really what you saw in the plan. It's really the state of the buildings, right? Now, can you pull in some intrinsic knowledge? Yeah. Did I need to see a photo of the traffic light to know the traffic light's there? No, nor does anybody else who's ever walked through that. Do I need to know how those driveways function? I didn't need Chris to tell me. It's nice that he did. I pulled out of the driveway. I know how it functions. You're allowed to bring that in, but that's site specific, not, the other benefits down the line.
Thank you. And I did not attend the planning board meeting. Those are recorded, correct? And we can go back and watch them?
Yes, there's a recording of that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I
It's
would
4
like to
hours, just so you know.
see- I figured it's not.
Yeah, it was a long one, Gina. Good luck.
That's okay, but.
You can take it down in pieces.
I'm curious about why the planning board voted the way they did, and what their arguments were. So-
That would be helpful to hear what the perspective of the planning board was, at least summarizing it, and that would be.
Can you do a presentation or something?
They're. Yeah, I wouldn't, it's your call now. I mean, to have them come kind of muddies. Right, their reasons are the record, you have access to it. I wouldn't necessarily have them come and restate anything, just in case there's a nuance or a difference in what they say today compared to what they said at the time of the hearing, all right? Because they make their decision in the moment
And it's solid.
based upon the information presented, not looking back at it, right? It's not an appeal of their decision. So I'd be very cautious of that.
Okay.
Understood, yeah, I'm just curious. Because again, we're getting a condensed version, so maybe I'll watch the whole version.
Yeah, I mean, planning boards, just for your edification, I mean, I know Chad knows this. They do all state the reason why they vote at the end. So you can watch the beginning. You could get a flavor for the type of questions asked, which I think are important by the residents. Some of them are duplicative, so you can, muster around with that. But before they vote, they each do get an opportunity to speak. They do get an opportunity to talk about why they feel what they feel and why what they do. So they do that. And I think that is your best summary.
Perfect, thank you. And last question, which is one I didn't want to ask earlier, but did we look, and I'm Joe, I don't think this is for you. In general, when we say prone to accidents, vehicles, pedestrians, yada, do we have any understanding of how many accidents have been here?
Yeah.
Vehicle or pedestrian?
I mean, I pulled the accident records for the last 5 years. There was only one accident over that period. You know,
Thank you.
you listen to the planning board if you want. That's.
Sorry, that was.
You'll hear more talk about that. That's the short answer. to your question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Are we ready for Tom, Mary Jane?
Excuse me? Jack? did you say-
Never mind. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, because Tom is now has the presentation.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, but it's hard because I'm sort of, there's about a half-second lag on my end.
The PowerPoint coming up.
Someone change our name so we can't compare songs. That's why I'm finding people to come up to the album.
Okay, so my name is Tom Trinietsky. I'm the Borough Administrator. I'm also a planner, but not in practice. I kind of have a broader view, I think, of what planning is for community from a strategic and business perspective. So
Can you just stop for a second? Jack, can you hear Tom?
Yeah, I can. And actually, I'd like to add that Tom's expertise here is one of the primary reasons why we brought him to this borough. So thank you for your advice and your opinion here, Tom.
So he had mentioned in that they couldn't hear, so I just want to make sure.
thank you. The mayor reached out and asked if I can just do an overview, go back to the beginning and explain why communities pick this tool to use. Because there's a lot of myths out there, a lot of misinformation. And so I want to go over with you what brought us to this point and why we're actually just considering this language of redevelopment. And I hope I can shed some light on it. So what I'm going to cover are the borough's planning goals. Why redevelopment versus standard development. I'm going to give you an illustrative example of a 1 acre redevelopment project in a downtown setting to show you physically what it actually means in this other community. We're going to talk a little bit about how a redevelopment, how smart growth in general spurs economic development and quality of life. And then I want to talk a little bit about the financing, because I know there's, you hear rumors, not rumors, but stories of towns and counties and states building stadiums and using pilots and taxpayer dollars and stuff like that. That's rarely the case when you involve small towns. As a matter of fact, I've never been involved in one where a single penny of taxpayer dollars was used for any kind of redevelopment project. And it's certainly not our intention here, or at least not that we've talked about or have a reason to talk about. So let's talk about the borough's planning goals. These are the main topics that are listed in the municipal master plan. To promote the downtown as a commercial and civic center, to enhance the physical characteristics of the downtown through signage, facade, streetscapes, encourage architectural design. This is all the language of standard zoning. Promote, enhance, encourage, because that's all standard zoning really lets you do. You can zone a single family home on whatever acreage is in a particular residential zone. And as long as the setbacks, the heights, the lot coverage meet your zone, they could paint that house pink or purple. And they could do it modern, they can do it postmodern, they can do it classic. They can make it look like it's from some classic movie. You have no control over that. When you think of it downtown, you really have to think of the brand of your municipality, right? And so redevelopment law and tools give you the power to be a little bit more engaged in that process, to make those words promote, enhance, and encourage meaningful, to put some action behind them. So if we were not to use redevelopment designation on the Palmer property, it is a big area in terms of a lot, in terms of a parking lot. It was designed, in my opinion, these types of lots were designed for a time to accommodate all the Christmas and Thanksgiving traffic you would need at a time where no one was online or doing anything. So it is very, very susceptible to someone coming around saying, I want to do something here. We have no rights to tell anyone they can't take down what's there now and do what the zoning code allows them to do. So this is a list of all those things they're able to do. Prior to coming to Bernardsville as the administrator, I know that the council, many councils, many volunteers invested many, many hours to think through how to create a cohesive downtown. My sense is that this council wanted to look at redevelopment to honor that process, to not let it be subject to this sort of random selection of, should we put another drive-through CVS on that corner, or just stack as many townhomes or apartments there as we want, which is all allowed under current zoning. Okay, so it was honoring that process, in my opinion, and nothing ill-conceived as some of the conversation out there has made it sound. Okay, so I wanted to give you this example. It was a community that I worked in. It was a bank that sat on 1 acre. And what happened over the years, because there was a redevelopment, a historic downtown started being populated by drive-through banks, drive-through pharmacies, convenience stores that maybe, paid us a little service by doing a clock tower in the front of the 7-Eleven. And over the years, just the historic buildings were sticking out, underutilized, and you could see which way this downtown was trending. Quite frankly, it seems as if we were trending that way as well, which I think caused the initial intervention when thinking about places like Audi and Quimby.
Yeah.
So it was there to give us a little more control. So what we were able to do in this community, and this is not a picture of what would be proposed here. This is a different economy, a different market. But what we were able to do is require a commercial component. So there's an office and a retail store on the corner. We required on-street parking, which didn't exist, sort of like we have here with the county or the highway, state highway, owning some of this right of way. So we required them to carve in 4 parking stalls on their right of way. We required new street lamps. We even mandated what type of cladding they would use. So we required them to use cement board, or I guess the commercial name of it sometimes is hardy plank, which is a composite material that provides a lot more noise attenuation, which enhances the value of an apartment, makes it more livable, and it allows it to change over time because you can paint it. So that was a small thing, but it was important to this community. Yeah. Also, they required a certain level of LEED accreditation because the community itself was going for, I think, silver certification or something like that.
So Tom, you guys wrote a redevelopment plan on this parcel, was that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
So if I can just make a point of emphasis, I know the public is listening tonight. So it's not lawful for a town to spot zone. And he talked about banks and a lot of things that they didn't want to see proliferate throughout the borough. One of the tools that it does allow, and that's not necessarily a tool we may choose, but it provides the option, is to specify the types of business, the types of materials, the types of setbacks, the types of amenities that exist on that lot, correct?
Right. Nothing that you could really do under the standard zoning.
That's correct. Thank you, Tom.
So at the end of the day, what was a $687 assessment of a bank was transformed to a $3.1 million assessment in the town with very limited service requirement. As a matter of fact, we wrote in there that they would be responsible for their trash collection, which, by the way, under law, an apartment would require, if we provide trash collection services, we have to do it for the apartment as well. That wouldn't apply here, but we wrote that into the agreement as well. So at the end of the day, what was generating about $14,000 a year in property taxes was generating almost $66,000 a year in property taxes. Now, we did not spend a penny on any of those things that were wanted, were desired. However, we did give a tax break. It was a 5-year tax break, not on the land, but on the value of the improvements. But as you can see, encouraging that development paid for itself in a matter of a few years. So that's the idea too behind redevelopment, is that they say redevelopment rather than development, because you're not just tearing down some trees on a meadow and building something. You're digging up oil tanks, you are getting rid of asbestos, you're digging everything up, you're rearranging utilities. All these things come at an expense. And usually the end result is something like a one-story convenience store to make the project profitable. So they give you these redevelopment tools so you can make arrangements to give you a quality development in your community. But again, not a penny of taxpayer dollars went into this.
This question, I'm going to hold to the end for it all. So just sort of, do you know what percentage of borough revenue currently derived from commercial property owners versus residential?
Yep. Between, there's two components. There's commercial and industrial, which make up 7% of our rateable base. I believe it's one of the smallest.
So the,
Small.
so basically, borough residents comprise of 93% of all borough revenue.
Actually, I would be even more specific to say that single family or condominium or townhome owners, the apartments are counted separately when you list them, and the valuation of apartments in Bernardsville doesn't even round up to 1.
A lot on taxpayers, this is just an overall.
Okay. So, so I explained how we approached the pilot for the corner property, the bank property. The property next to it had a historic home. It used to be an antique store that was set back about 75 feet. So their pilot on the right, was right next door, was structured a little differently because we asked that building to be preserved, to be moved forward, to be refinished, for the ground floor to be dedicated for gallery space and community gallery space. And the top floor was converted to 2 co-units. So, you know, each one requires its own different consideration based on what benefits the community derives from.
So Tom, just to continue for the public, if you wouldn't have designated that historic property, you would not have had those tools to make sure that that happened appropriately. Is that also a correct statement?
Absolutely true. That building was. So I think I want to summarize the economic benefits that were derived from this particular project. And I, you know, really enjoyed going to some of these old projects and watching young people, young adults, first-time renters or young professionals get out and walk to coffee shops and things like that. In the case of, I think, the Palmer property, you know, everything happens during the day, during the business day. There's nothing going on in the evenings. It's not generating any sort of activity either on site really, or from that site into the community where we have vacant stores, right? So that's why having a populace with disposable income within what we call the walking shed is so important. Where it just doesn't make sense to get into your car to get that gallon of milk.
Next question on that. Do you know how many, maybe not off your head, but just because you brought up the Palmer property vis-a-vis cozy downtown concepts. How many businesses are there right now and how many vacant?
On Quimby,
No, on Palmer.
on
You mentioned Palmer.
I know that there's, the bank that was on the bottom is, an occupied for sure. I'm not sure exactly.
You can give me information later, but I'd be interested to know how many individual businesses are there. So, you know,
The thing that the example that I showed you allowed us to do is to coordinate with 2 or 3 other redevelopment areas. And that to me, you know, it's not a criteria that you can use, but I felt it was really important strategically. Because we can control the architecture, let's say on Palmer, and the urban design elements on Palmer, we can coordinate them with those in other designated redevelopment areas in that, you know, in that vicinity. So that created a brand value. Okay. The other thing I just want to be clear about is not only do we see that the inherent value of the lot is enhanced and it generates more property taxes. Not everyone realizes that those vacant storefronts, the way they're assessed is not just on the building and the land. All commercial properties also have to provide their income statements. And that gets weighed into the valuation that we place on the books. So, you know, it's not just that it would fill a vacant store, but the more vibrant we can make it downtown, from the morning to the evening is going to have an impact on all the businesses, and therefore it's going to benefit the entire community. Perhaps the last thing to point out is when you do redevelopment, the developer often works with you on improvements offsite. So maybe you can't do parking or a park or something like that on that property, but you could negotiate enhanced contributions or work on nearby areas where those residents would benefit from that type of investment, as well as the community.
Now, Tom, can I clarify that statement? So any of those negotiations would also have to happen within the context of the redevelopment plan, correct?
Only in the redevelopment plan.
Only in a redevelopment plan.
Agreement, redevelopment agreement. So just from my 2 cents sitting through the 4 hours of the planning board, we spent a lot of time on the parking lot and the other criteria, which I think was important and is really the meat and potatoes of the designation. Sometimes the H criteria, the smart growth criteria, just kind of gets put on the side because it's so, you know, all encompassing. You can almost say anything is smart growth. But I think when it's at the intersection of your core, on the most prominent corner of your core, then that smart growth criteria, in my mind, as sort of the economic development guy in town hall, looking for revenues and the brand and vitality, that registered with me for what that's worth. All right, so in summary, owners have the right to develop properties per the zoning code, even if the property is already developed. Redevelopment designation provides the borough control. Redevelopment designation allows the borough to be active rather than passive in the pursuit of community goals. Remember, promote, encourage, and enhance. Redevelopment projects will not be paid for by the borough. Redevelopment actually increases borough revenue and improves the local economy. It supports the planning goals that reflect a lot of public input, from what I understand, that the committee pulled together. And lastly, it's important to point out that the borough is not able to engage in eminent domain for redevelopment unless it is stated in the study and in the plan ordinance. And the owners are directly notified. Only the outing property is so designated. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. That's so true. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of good information. Right. moving on to approval of minutes. Oh, I just want to say, we do not have this on the agenda right now to vote on it. I think, I mean, even as Captain Freedy said, if, you know, we want some time to review the planning board, to go through the, investigation report, to review what Tom has said. And, you know, it's August, a lot of people are away, and we want to give people the opportunity to watch this YouTube if they still have questions, or to call our administrator or myself, or anyone if they want more information, or they want to discuss some of the ideas we covered. So I think we will, if the council's okay with that, I would say we put making a decision off until September to allow the public more time to review and us as well. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. We have minutes to approve, July 11th. Do I have a motion? Approve the minutes from July 11th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, We don't have to. All right, we are now moving on to our first public session. So we have a lot of people in the animals on Zoom. So I'm going to say, if you want to speak, please use the raise your hand icon. And Anthony is watching it. Wait till we recognize you. Please give your name and address so that the clerk can report it. And limit your comments to 3 minutes. Our clerk will keep track of the time. Please note this is not a time for debate. It's an opportunity for the public to hear their comments. If you would like to have a further discussion, the administrator or myself are available for that. And you can call and we have to schedule time. So I see a hand here in the audience. So please come up and state your name and where you live. And Anthony will be holding up the timer. Or you have to.
Okay, we'll try to keep it short. My name is Raymond Lilly. I am at 49 Anderson Hill Road. It's corner of Anderson Hill Road and Old Army Road. I'm relatively new to this town. My wife, Mary, and I got married on September 27th, 2020. I'm originally from Mars Township, and my wife is originally from Mendham. My wife does have cousins on the other side of the train tracks, a couple blocks away from the center of Bernardsville. And basically just wanted to say that I've heard some of what was going on here about the redevelopment. We had heard, and actually my neighbor across the street at 56 Anderson Hill Road spoke to you on the phone, I think this week. And I guess there's some kind of a proposal to build apartment housing by the bagel bin right in the center of Olcott Square. And, you know, we're just concerned that would bring a lot more traffic and a lot more congestion to the center of Bernardsville. And my wife and I are opposed to that being located in the center of Bernardsville, that it may be better in some more type of open space within the town, as opposed to right in to the center of Bernardsville. Yes.
It is an allowed use by right according to the zoning code of the town. So what is being proposed is how best to approach it so we can control it from the design perspective.
Right.
So nothing's been actually received or proposed, but it's an opportunity to designate it in such a way that would allow the borough to have much more design control over it. But it is something that's zoned for. Once a property is zoned, property owner, such as yourself as a homeowner,
Right.
if it's zoned for single family residential, you can do that. So that's the issue here. There's zoning that's allowed. It's more how do we control it?
Another, I guess I was saying that this would be like a multi-residential building that would be built in the center of Olcott Square. That was my understanding.
So the zoning allows for 3-story structures and it allows for a variety of uses, including apartments.
3 stories,
Up to.
up to 3 stories. And how many rooms total in that building?
There's no proposal to evaluate,
Right.
so we don't know.
And it sounds like this is part of some bigger plan, that other things involved in this redevelopment, be the old Audi dealership, between, I guess, the ShopRite and Walters. And
I can walk you through the zoning map of the town so you can see what uses are allowed where,
right,
but you know, and then so maybe if you had a sense of where the boundaries were, I would talk about that.
okay, that's, I guess what you were saying is that under the zoning laws, it would be allowed at this time, but it could not exceed 3 stories, is it?
Yeah. And they're all separate areas. So Audi is not connected to Quimby, is not connected to.
Oh, okay, it sounded to me from what
Yeah.
I know I was a little bit late.
Yeah, no, that's why I wanted. to
I work in
clarify.
Roseland and then I came home and ate my dinner, which I have to do because I'm a type 1 diabetic. But
And actually, this is all on YouTube, so if you want to catch up on the part you missed, you can, through our website, you can just watch it.
oh, thank you. But I think some of us in that area, are opposed to that coming in here as far as, increase the traffic right in the center of Bernardsville. And that's, that's our concern.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else in the audience? Okay, see my hands up, I can't.
4 right now.
I can't read.
Yeah, and the Hawks is the first one. I see.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. This is Emma Hawks. I actually am from neighboring Mendham, 6 Robert Road. And, in these small towns, we've been growing up visiting each other's towns for years now. So I was interested and I joined the meeting. So thanks for the info that you provided today. You said no question, so I guess I'll state my question as my own opinion. I just don't understand why, and so, feel free to comment, you would not go into what seemed to me rather superficial parking lot accessibility repairs, rather than investing more money into tearing down the lot, and then also considering the fact that you are essentially destroying a lot of businesses that have spent years in Bernardsville and form the heart and the culture of the town. So would love some comments there, but to me, it doesn't make sense why you would want more control to develop or redevelop. And you say you'd like to avoid apartment buildings and then you plan to put one up anyway. So, any insight you'd like to provide, would be happy to hear it. Thank you.
Can I try? So Emma, I don't know if you heard the beginning of the meeting, but currently today, what is allowed in the area of the Palmer building is there is a list of 8 or 10 uses under the current zoning that council has 0 control over. The current owners can do whatever they please under the current zoning laws. That means tearing down the buildings, that means doing whatever they want. What is before the council right now is whether or not it should be considered an area of redevelopment. And that has different benefits, again, which were in very clearly in the borough administrator's presentation. So I would encourage you to go back and watch that and listen to it if you missed it. But what can be done there is not under this council's control. I hope that's very clear.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your comments. To me, it seems like land in the middle of Bernardsville that the town would be responsible for upkeeping anyway. So to me, that seems like that should be parking lots that are upkept, accessibility that's upkept. I'm not sure I understand that as a reason for complete and full redevelopment.
So Emma, it's important to realize that the designating an area or a lot as an area of redevelopment, it sends a signal to the property owners that things either need to get fixed, or as a borough, we can create plans that they have to adhere to. Under New Jersey redevelopment law, we cannot do what's called spot zoning, meaning that once you have an overlay for a town, any property owner is free to do whatever they choose based on current zoning laws. So if they, currently in the downtown corridor, you can build 3 stories with certain setbacks. If the property owner chose, and now this is their choice, to knock all of the buildings down, build 3 stories on the entire parcel, they can do so long as they're not encroaching on the setbacks. And in part of the study and part of what the borough is looking to do, that would allow us more control over what they can do there if they decide to do anything.
Okay, yeah, no, I appreciate the clarification. So in that case, what is your plan in terms of ensuring that those businesses that have been there maintain their spot, or, in the redeveloped, once you buy that land, or once you get that designation, understand, okay, these are the criteria that we would like to optimally have in this downtown parcel of Bernardsville. What would you then do to ensure that you kind of have the best of both worlds and make sure that those businesses can stay?
We haven't even, so we don't have jurisdiction over individual parties. So parties or agreements that exist between businesses and the current property owners are proprietary, and in the relationship between those businesses and those property owners. The borough does not have control over those items. There may be some tools that we have that we could explore, but those tools aren't in place, or they're not in front of us at this point.
Yeah, so just to supplement what the councilman just said, currently you have no control, right? It's a private matter between the landlord and the tenant, no different than any other commercial property in town. That is a private matter, not subject to this council. So if they decide to tear it down, not renew a lease or anything else, we may all feel bad about that or not be happy about the loss of the business. But other than that, there's not much you can do. However, if it's an area in need of redevelopment and there's a redevelopment plan, you can impose relocation requirements. You can.
Okay. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Okay, we're now working together to redevelop, right? So we need you to relocate. For example, in the Quimby Lane, we require a relocation plan for the post office and for our municipal parking lot, right? Either those spaces are going to disappear, they got to be given back within the project. So the redevelopment board gives you that control. So if you want that control, it sounds like this person calling in would like that control. The way to do it is to declare it an area in need of redevelopment, write a redevelopment plan, and begin the process.
Okay, I appreciate you explaining the different factors. Okay, well, in that case, I would just like to go on record saying that I do think that as a young professional myself, as somebody that you're hoping to attract into these areas, I think those businesses themselves, not just, something to consider as you develop your redevelopment plan, those businesses are one of the biggest draws in Bernardsville, and definitely something to consider maintaining if you at all possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
That's it, Alex Sherman, turn in.
Alice?
Hi, yep. I hear you. Give me 1 second. Can you hear me okay? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm shaking. I'm so upset.
Would you
I can't hear you because it's really difficult to hear you. So if you can come closer to the camera or something.
The mayor is requesting your name and address.
Oh, sure, Mayor. My name is Alex Chernin. I'm from Mendham, just like Emma, been going into Bernardsville my whole life. I actually don't have anything astute to say. I actually can't reference any of the exhibits that Chris Coley Googled, as he explained to us very clearly on the last call. And Chad, if you want to jump in as you have been all evening.
This is devastating. You guys know exactly what you're doing. You're tearing down businesses that matter to a community that have mattered for over 30 years. You know exactly what you are doing. And I want to go on record saying that it is corrupt, it is evil, and there are over 100 people on this call who agree. And you are speaking completely opposed to how the people of this town feel. So again, apologies for not being so astute, being very upset, but I'm shaking, I'm so livid. You are taking away people's livelihoods and what they care about in a small town. I am also a young professional. If you do this redevelopment plan, I can guarantee you, I make money. I would never move to this shit town with businesses and dumb apartments. You're taking away what is essential about a place like Bernardsville. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me just state again, this is not the Borough Council doing this.
I understand, and you know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly what you're doing.
This is not our control, it's the property owner.
So then why have landlords been unresponsive? And why has this been going under the radar for quite some time? Why has all of that been going on? Please explain that to me, because that's something I really don't understand.
When was the Palmer property purchased? Or when did they enter into their agreement?
So
Sorry, it's hard to hear you. Please speak up.
the question was, has there been a change in ownership in the property? And the answer is no. It is still owned by
The Palmer.
Palmer in some form. I forget the actual name of the deed search.
So can we answer her question as to how we got here? Because the insinuation is that it's been under the radar and that we're.
It has been completely.
Not, so I would like to provide the facts.
Ma'am, so,
Okay, lay them on.
right? It's
No,
just
this
only-
is clearly very upsetting.
It only works if one person speaks at a time. So you had your, you spoke. I have a council person that asked me to respond to a question. So now I'm going to take that opportunity. Is that okay?
Please.
Thank you. So again, how did we get here? As I stated earlier, the subject of redevelopment of the downtown of Bernardsville has been a decade, if not multi-decade. Jack has sat in this room. Sorry to put you in here, Jack, but it has been topics. If these walls could speak, there have been many councils before this one, different iterations of council people who have talked about redeveloping the downtown. How we got here is this council has taken some affirmative steps. One is you asked a planning board to conduct a study. That's how we got here. The study was done, it was presented, it's been represented tonight.
Can we talk about the timing of that specifically?
How long did it take us to finally get here? Well, 2 decades to finally move forward.
Talking
But
specifically about the Palmer location.
the Palmer location you authorized in January of this year. Chris Colley then took a good amount of time to study it. Some might say too long, because if you're worried about it or worried, but I think he did a very thorough inspection of the property. It allows you to look at it at different seasons over a different longer period of time instead of one snapshot. He went out various times, if you read his report, looked at it at various intervals and various uses. That gave him a basis, and that brought you here today.
When did he finish that report?
That report is dated April 22nd of 2022. I might be off by a day or
And
two.
at that point, it was also
Okay.
posted.
I have a question then. Okay, fair, but what stops you in that process from then? Why is it just these buildings? I don't understand why you're tearing down just these very important buildings.
So Alex, it's important to realize the borough has no control over what gets torn down.
Chad,
and what
I'm so
doesn't.
sorry, but I've heard this several times already. I understand what you're saying, but clearly there's been a lack of communication between landlords and business.
Alex, you muted yourself. Alex, you muted yourself.
No, her
I was muted, actually.
time limit. And to your point, although you may say it a number of times, whether or not the borough agrees, disagrees, modifies the findings of the planning board does not automatically translate to any building being torn down.
Totally understood. Have heard it 12 times.
Stand it, but you said it 3 times. So I want to make sure other people who may have been listening.
But other people who are on this call all know what you guys are doing. They all know.
So
whether
Alex,
or not
what
you
is
say
it?
it,
Alex,
we
what is
don't
it?
know.
What is it you think we're doing, Alex? I'm curious.
I think that you're tearing down businesses that are people's lives.
Yeah. She had her opportunity to speak.
Alex, I'll speak very personally. If I put a redevelopment plan in place, I'm doing so to help protect the businesses that are there. Because as it currently stands, a borough has zero right to interfere with interactions between business owners and property owners.
Okay, then can I have in writing that you're gonna make sure the bagel bin doesn't get shut down, make sure the florist doesn't get shut down? I'd love that in writing, because if that's what.
Excuse me, every member of the public is given a certain time period to speak.
Yeah.
This person has been given more than that time already, so.
Yeah.
There is certainly,
Okay.
the next.
We're moving on to the next speaker. Who is that, Anthony?
What you're doing is corrupt.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Cheryl Riley. I'm at 67A Childs Road in Bernardsville. I've been a Bernardsville resident most of my life. I'm born, raised here, raised my family here. And I just wanted to make a couple comments. Number one, I am totally opposed to apartment buildings and anything like that that could take place. You talk about not having any control over what landlords do to their buildings, but you do have control over what happens on a homeowner's property. If somebody wants to build something, you tell them they can or they can't based on recessing and all these sorts of things. So you do have some control. What I don't understand is why, when these superficial problems happened at the Palmer building, why weren't they addressed? I believe they were addressed in a redevelopment project from 2019, where some of these things went to the owner of the building to have them fixed, and nobody followed up. Did anybody go after Palmer to fix the parking lot, to make sure that the bushes were trimmed, I know there was a grandfather clause so that they didn't have to have a wheelchair access in some places, but maybe they needed some, state funding to help them get those wheelchair accesses if that's what's needed. There are tools available through the towns to help businesses and buildings and what have you. You don't need to tear them down. If the idea of redevelopment is to promote, enhance, encourage, and vibrate the town, then tearing things down and rebuilding and putting in apartment buildings, and I know everybody's saying, oh, they could do that now, but it hasn't been talked about. I've lived here my whole life, and I've not heard anything about turning our town into Morristown or, one of these other towns until just recently, over the last year and a half. So maybe there's been a buzz about that, but nobody's ever really talked about it. So, when the redevelopment took place at the Kings there, I don't know who designed that parking lot, but they really needed to talk to a better engineer, because that parking lot is a disaster. Regardless of where you park, you still have to walk through the parking lot to get to the buildings. And therefore the traffic direction is odd. The radius of turns are not correct, but we're not tearing that down and putting apartment buildings there. So why can't we promote, enhance, and encourage beauty of our town, small town USA? That's why we live here. That's why we come here. We come to raise our families here and our children here. And this is why I've stayed here and my grandchildren are going to Bernards High, is because we want it to be a small town. We don't want to look like Morristown. We don't want to look like anyone else. We want to preserve the businesses that are there. We want to shop small town. We want to stay small town.
Thank you for your comments. That was 3 minutes. Thank you for sharing. Who's next?
You're welcome.
NBC.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, it's Eddie Zervigon, 100 Bliss Road, Mendham, New Jersey. So I would echo a lot of the comments that have already been made, but I want to bring a new wrinkle into this, which is the concept of a process. You impaneled a planning board to look at this. We spent 4 hours going through it. After 4 hours, they concluded, with one lone exception, that they were in agreement that the redevelopment plan should not go forward for many of the reasons listed. Why are we doing this all over again? Unless there was already a preconceived answer that you wanted to get to and you didn't like their answer, and so you're doing this again to get to a different answer. As a professional board member who sits on public company boards, that is highly, highly unusual when you impanel a committee, an audit committee, for example, for them to make a recommendation and then the board to go against the recommendation, especially when they don't have all the facts and all the commentary that was made on that night 3 weeks ago. So that's the first thing I would add. The second is that if you do truly believe that the landowners can act in whatever way they see fit today, irrespective of whether it's rezoned, then why aren't they? Why aren't they selling the property to a new buyer that can redevelop it? Because there are benefits that come with a redevelopment plan, whether it be tax subsidies, whether it be additional allotments that were not currently anticipated or allowed for under the development laws. So I think that's a very disingenuous statement when you keep saying that this will allow that to happen. It would already have happened, but for additional benefits that are going to be provided to a new buyer or a new developer for that matter. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Who do we have next?
Next, we have Corey Lewis.
Hi, so before it was, Corey Lewis, 8710 Brittany Drive, Wayne, New Jersey. It was said before that not every property, can you hear me? It looks like there's some confusion.
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. It looked like there was some confusion on board member spaces. Okay. Before it was said that not every property could be considered an area in need. Can you provide one example of a property in downtown that does not qualify? Because it sounds like if you look hard enough, you can find fault in anything.
Okay, we just needed you for a second because we didn't hear where you live.
Start time.
Yeah, we'll start.
Corey?
8710 Brittany Drive in Wayne, New Jersey.
New Jersey, really?
New Jersey.
Got it.
All right. Do I have to repeat myself or do you want me to repeat what I said? Yes. Okay. So before it was said that not every property could be considered an area in need. So can you provide one example of a property in downtown Bernardsville that does not qualify? Because it sounds like if you look hard enough, you can find fault in anything.
Oh, that's not before the council. It's not before the council.
No.
The council has a important topology saying this particular property qualifies.
Right,
So you can't answer a hypothetical.
thank you.
Okay, so then I have one more question. So with Chris Foley's whole meeting board thing from the last time, 4 hours we all sat, as Eddie just said. And to now sit here and some, I guess, members are like, now I have to go back, I don't know, I guess we maybe do our homework. As a town, and you have landlords, right? If a landlord does not maintain their property as a town, can you go to them and say, hey, this doesn't look right. You need to kind of fix this up. Or as a town, you kind of just sit back.
We have a property maintenance code that has certain standards, but as long as the property owner meets those standards, there's not anything the borough can do. The borough has no control over the color, materials, anything of that nature. It is basic maintenance.
Okay, because what I sat on that meeting for 4 hours and what it came down to from Chris's thing on why it needs to be an area of redevelopment is because the parking lot wasn't maintained. So as a landlord, your tenants pay a maintenance fee. That maintenance fee should be going towards the property. So therefore the landlord should be maintaining the property. And as a town, you guys should be going around and looking and saying, hey, you're not maintaining your property. This parking lot doesn't look great. Will we just let it go and then say, hey, this is a whole area of redevelopment. Let's tear it down and put up apartments and everything we need. Just doesn't make sense to me. Thank you.
Corey, who's our next speaker there?
Our next is, the name is Jen.
Hi there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name's Jen Zervagon and I'm on 100 Bliss Road in Mendham and a big consumer and supporter of all things in Bernardsville, especially the businesses. First, just want to point out, we cannot hear you in the Borough Hall. So you guys, the mayor continually tells us that we don't understand the details of this, of the purpose of redevelopment plan and zoning and all that. Please make it clear to us by simple things like making your microphones work, okay, and having a proper Zoom setup. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me? Thank you. Okay, so first off, just to be clear, in this call, you guys have not, when you did a summary of the situation, I don't think you've been clear about who benefits by this designation as an area in need of redevelopment. The fact is, if you designate this area as an area of redevelopment, as the mayor pointed out on social media, the real estate developer and the landlord will benefit by that designation. So this is about money for the landlord and the real estate developer. So when we talk about this, all the wonderful benefits that you've shown for an area of redevelopment, let's make it very clear to everybody. It's about paying people money on the backs of taxpayers, because a tax break to a redeveloper is funded by us. Second point, and I think I'm supporting some of the things that other people have said, because we're very, I think, irate that 250 of us called in for the zoning board call, spent 4 hours listening to a very detailed best effort attempt by this individual that was hired by you all. And that zoning board said unanimously, I think, except for Mr. McQueen, who I'm not sure was supposed to vote on that, unanimously said that it was not an area in need of redevelopment. All voting members on your council should have been on that call. And if they aren't, they shouldn't even be in this meeting without listening to it and considering for a moment all the issues that were raised on that call. It's insanity to me. It was very in-depth. And all you guys are focused on today is how much you would like and how much the town would benefit from this designation, when the reality is it's not capable of being designated that way, at least according to your zoning board. So I don't understand why you're talking about all the benefits. You don't get the benefits if it is not worthy of the designation. That is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Can I just respond real quick? Because now this is the second time that I feel personally attacked for not listening to the 4-hour session for the planning board. It happened in July. People are on vacation. This is a volunteer role that we sit here for council. We are not paid for this. So when I have the time, I will go and look at it. This is not being voted on tonight. So I do not feel as though I attended this session without proper preparation.
I'd like to make a point. It's not an appeal from the planning board's recommendation.
Jackie.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they can all hear, and also just for the public's benefit, you know, we continue with the Zoom, but we have chairs here and people are welcome to come in person.
Certain, well, we were notified about this on Friday. So first off, I don't even know that you have publicized it enough for us to participate. It's been impossible to participate with your avenues. And Miss, who's the volunteer? I truly respect your volunteerism. You have to understand.
This is not an appeal from the planning board's recommendation. You are free to act. You're making an independent judgment based on the record that you create. The planning board sent a report to you with its recommendation. It's the same that we do with every zoning ordinance. Every zoning ordinance has to get referred to the planning board. They make a recommendation to the council. You have the right to override that recommendation as long as you adopt a separate resolution setting forth the reasons for overriding the planning board's recommendation. And that's why Mr. Colley testified tonight, and you can get additional information before you make your own independent judgment. So you have no obligation to listen to that 4-hour planning board meeting.
Who's next? We have another one?
We have Dean Sherman.
Hello, my name is Blake Chernin, 11 Cherry Lane, Brookside, New Jersey. So I've noticed a pattern. Yes?
Brookside, we got that.
I've noticed a pattern in this meeting where somebody will make a comment about the future plans for these lots. And you will give a long speech about how, oh, the purpose of redevelopment is because right now we can't do spot zoning. We can't control what landlords put on those lots. And then when somebody like Emma specifically, or like Alex, asks you to make some kind of guarantee of what you will do with this control that you're fighting to gain, all of a sudden there's hemming and hawing and, oh, we can't control this. I have to imagine there's some idea of plans for redevelopment, or else this would be quite a large waste of taxpayers' time if you're just going into this blind with no ideas of what you're planning to put in those places. So my first question or comment is, can you look at the community gathered right now and guarantee that you will not, with the power that you are asking to be granted to, as you said, spot zone these lots, will you ensure that instead of putting up new businesses, that the actual problems will be addressed, that whatever accessibility issues you're seeing will be addressed, that new apartments won't be built? Can you look at us and guarantee that?
So that guarantee can't be made at this point, and the reason's very simple. Not knowing what the owner is going to do, we can provide, like we did with Quimby Lane, a redevelopment plan that overlays it and structures it. But we cannot mandate.
But you can
Something
zone
happens.
against, you just gave a whole presentation about how this means you can control what it's zoned for.
We can tighten up what it can be used for and what can be done there.
So can you say it won't be used for apartments? Is that what is in your power to do?
We actually, I wouldn't say that there wouldn't be apartments there, because I think that's an important part of our master plan.
Okay. Oh, so it is an important part of your master plan to
Yes.
put apartments there. Okay, thank you so much. Also for the board member, the council member who said, oh, I didn't get a chance to listen to the meeting. Some people are on vacation. Shame on you. This is people's livelihoods. I did not plan to get on here and get incensed. I wanted to talk to you like adults. You were going on vacation. Is this summer break to you? People's businesses? I'm glad to hear that that's your commitment to your community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Yes, we have someone in the audience.
Frank DiNapoli, 46 Maple Village Court, multiple owner of Quimby Lane Properties. I'd like to make a statement more than a question. And I think a lot of the public's concern comes to how the redevelopment designation affects the existing businesses. I know from experience, it puts me at a disadvantage. Almost every day that I open my doors, people come in and say, when's the wrecking ball coming? I can't sign people up for any kind of long-term wash programs or anything like that. I think that's what public is most concerned about.
Thank you, Brett. Joe, can you address that?
Yeah, I don't understand why he feels that way, because it's an area needed redevelopment plan with non-condemnation. He has absolute right never to sell that property to anybody.
My customers don't seem to
You have the absolute right to not sell that property, to operate your business the way you've been operating it and the way the family has been operating it for years. There is no one interfering with your business.
I'm just telling you public opinion.
And I am trying to relieve that public opinion, so we can say it till we're blue in the face, but I need to say it again. If right now you're not necessarily understanding it and your customers aren't understanding it, no one is taking your business. No one is condemning your property. No one is asking you to close or to put you out of business. All they did was essentially give you an opportunity, should you choose, not the developer, not the council, but should you choose to sell your property, you, as one of the people online said may benefit from that designation. Because your property at the time of your choosing may be more valuable or desirable because of that designation.
In my case, that'll never be.
Because,
But
well, but understand the process, right? So the next time a customer comes in, you can absolutely look them in the face and say, not happening, not going anywhere. I'm gonna be here.
I'm tired of saying it. I say it every day, but I'm getting tired of saying it. Well, my point is, once you're in the redevelopment zone, that's how the public views you as a lame duck business. That's my statement. It's not a question, it's not a debate. I know what you're telling me. And I have an email with the mayor, that's not a conversation, but the public views me as a lame duck business because I am in the zone.
And Frank, one of the things we're trying to do is get that message out to the public. That we are not taking anyone's property. We are not forcing anyone to sell. If no one sells, nothing happens. And the public needs to understand that, and they do saying it, and I'm sorry that you have to say it every time.
I didn't come here to speak tonight, but I wanted to kind of give you a different perspective.
Yes.
No, look, again, it's, not everyone does this, right? I've done it a number of times, so it's like a second language for me sometimes, right? I understand it, right? For a property owner, it's a scary thing, right? It's an unknown thing, right? You probably called an attorney or somebody up, spent a little money that you didn't want to say, what does this mean to me, right? No, I understand that. But if the goal is, or the desire is to help revitalize the businesses, right? Or help revitalize the area, right? Now, you would benefit. Hold on one second, but ancillary, right? So someone talked about property value for the property in question. What also happens is the same as mine, right? So my neighbor redid his house on Old Colony Road. Guess what happens to my house? Went up a little bit, right? So if across the street, there's some development or the empty storefronts or better property, that Napa store that does nothing now, right? It's empty, not really good for the surrounding area. So redevelopment, sometimes it's an old cliche, but you know, a strong tide lifts all ships.
I agree with that. Problem for my business is they can't be relocated.
Because you're next to a street.
I
No, you can't.
Mr. DiNapoli, we appreciate your comments a lot. I think the spirit you're trying to convey is making sure that we put ourselves in the shoes of.
Yeah, I'm just trying to give you a different point of
So
view.
that we have a full picture whenever we put the definitions are of all the eventualities that might. So I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
And Mary Jane, if I can just make a comment, because what that interchange is really important for the public to understand. The area redevelopment overlay that we were able to provide on Quimby Lane, it provided 7 public benefits, including parks and various things, that if that area ever in total was ever redeveloped, we had a plan. It was a plan. You know, I forget the person's name that was asking for assurances. The reason why assurances can't be made is individual property owners have the right to decide whether they believe in the same vision or they don't. And you know, look, over time that vision may need to change if it isn't plausible, and that's fine. But I think it's important for the public to understand that this is the reason why this is done in public. If this is a give and take, and there's a long conversation that's going to last a long time to be had.
Thank you, Chad. We have one more person here.
Yeah, Craig Lemon.
Greg, are you there?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Craig Levin. I live at 1234 Cornell Road in Bridgewater. I run a business that's on the Bernardsville, Bedminster border. I spend a lot of time in Bedminster, shopping, dining, etc. Couple questions I have, and just it's something I'm not involved in. Is the planning board serves at the pleasure of the mayor? Is that true?
They have 4-year terms. The mayor appoints and reappoints members, but they can only be removed during their 4-year terms for cause.
They're appointed by the mayor.
That's correct, except.
Oh, so they serve at the pleasure of the mayor then?
Serve at the pleasure of the mayor. They have 4-year terms. And during that.
Okay.
They
All
cannot
right.
do separate jobs.
All right. So Mike, so the planning board, Madam Mayor, we can't hear you at all.
Or they are an independent autonomous body. So I do not influence them or speak to them or have any input in their decision making.
Oh, no, that I understand, but you appoint them, is what my question was. Yes?
Yes. except
You're
for the
shaking your
budget.
head. You have to speak so we can hear. So look, I was on the whole planning board meeting and a majority of what came out was a lot of the problems on the Palmer property was cosmetic and can be repaired through painting of the parking lot, maybe some repaving and moving some hedges. The gentleman from topology put up a couple maps today that showed a 1991, I believe, approved parking lot map, which is totally different than what's going on now. Who is responsible to make sure the owners of that property are following that map? And if nobody's responsible, why do we go through the idea of approving a site plan if nobody's going to check it and make sure it's done properly?
The zoning officer enforces the zoning ordinances and.
Okay, so has the zoning officer, gone back there since 1991 in 20 years and make sure that they're following what they said the town should, agreed upon? We don't know. Okay, another question is, I understand the planning board was unanimous 6-0. Is that true?
No, it was 6-1.
Yes.
Was Mr. McQueen's vote counted or,
Yes. I am a class 3 member of the planning board.
There is actually a member of the planning board, but she can appoint a designee. And one member of the council is a member of the planning board. They're full members of the planning board. They have full voting rights, just like any other class.
Okay, just a question. And one other question is it known, is there a contingent contract on any of the redevelopment properties with a third party to go ahead with redevelopment if it's approved? Is there a contract of sale on any of the redevelopment properties if the redevelopment gets approved? Has that been brought forward at all?
So whether there's a contract has no bearing on the decision of the planner when they offered their opinion as to whether the properties are an area in need of redevelopment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody, I don't see anybody else. Oh, John?
Hello, John Donahue, 16 South Street. I've been following these proceedings. It's been curious to me. There's a lot of willful ignorance, I think. And the most curious part is there's Wayne, Mendham, Bridgewater, the actual Bernardsville people are outnumbered in this. And I'm not sure where this is coming from, but I think the board should consider the source of some of this. I mean, and if you come in from Mendham to get your bagels where they cook their eggs in plastic in a microwave, you got to find a new place to go. I'm sorry. I was getting livid just listening to this. Anyway, thank you. Good night.
Thank you, John. Johanna, you there?
Yes, I would like to commend the members of this council for their patience and their tolerance for misinformation, false accusations, and sometimes a lack of their own interest or knowledge of how the system works. And you've been very civil, and I really appreciate it. And I'm really from Bernardsville. Thank you.
Thank you.
Johanna, we didn't get your address for the record, please.
Yeah, Washington Corner Road.
Yeah.
We'll go to Heather Ike.
Heather? Heather,
Hi, guys. Okay, I'm unmuted. Okay. Heather Ike, 60 Stone Fence Road, Bernardsville. I just wanted to go on record to say, as somebody who actually lives in this town, somebody who votes in this town, somebody who actually pays taxes in this town, that I'm fully in support of this redevelopment designation. And I also just wanted to say thank you to the council for your patience, for your volunteerism, for your civility, and your efforts to try to get the public to understand your position, despite the blatant disrespect you're experiencing. It's unwarranted and it's not deserved, and it's not really coming from the majority of your constituents. So thank you.
Thank you.
We have Ally Starr.
Ally?
Hello, how are you? My name is Christopher Otto. I live at 110 Post Cunhard Road here in Bernardsville, New Jersey. I'm an actual Bernardsville resident. I am the managing partner of Otto Group, one of the leading real estate development and consultation firms in the state. And I can tell you that I am currently opposed to Advanced Realty Group's current proposal in Hoboken, as I work for the city, so I have no allegiance to them. And I can tell you that we are in full favor, my wife and I, of this redevelopment. It's going to be wonderful for the town. It was very well presented tonight. There has been nothing but misinformation put out on social media and by people who are in Wayne and far towns away from here that have nothing to do with Bernardsville and our local downtown. So I commend you for dealing with all of this nonsense, all of this misinformation act, and we look forward to seeing this redevelopment go through.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's it.
There wasn't one, but it disappeared.
There's two more.
We're going to people, actually, these people have spoken already. I don't know.
Yeah, I think in a
Hello.
time.
iPhone 2 did not. iPhone 2 did not.
Oh, iPhone 2? Who is that?
I'd like to speak, but the raise hand option is not there anymore.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Sue Rankin. I live at 1521 Pine Street. And I'd like to reiterate and support those who have said to not change the quaintness of our town. I worry about an apartment building in the center of town because anybody who's driven there through rush hour, it's difficult. I am very upset as well about businesses that will have to close because of this. And I just need a little clarification. If it gets designated an area of redevelopment, that means state taxpayer money is involved in it?
No, that is not.
It does not. So what does that mean then? Like, what does that mean to the town? What does that mean to the developer or the property owner?
It just means that the town said that's an area that needs to be developed. Exactly what it says. Nothing more, nothing less.
Who are they saying that to? Who are you saying that to? As if you've said that for 20 years you've been talking about this, I don't understand what the need to say that. I mean, anybody who looks at the property knows that it needs to be fixed up. And just an aside, someone else had mentioned this, you know, maybe go around the town and get people areas, because people have noted that other areas look just as bad. When does that become the homeowners or not the homeowners, the property owner's responsibility? That's just an aside. But so you say it needs redevelopment, then what?
It's not that I say it needs development. A planner who was hired to study it in conjunction and agreed upon with a borough planner who has been the planner for over a decade, both agree that it meets the state criteria. The borough then declares it to be an area in need of redevelopment. It goes on file as an area in need of redevelopment. If the borough takes no further action, the underlying zoning, everything else stays. So you're declaring that as an area in need of redevelopment. What does that do? It sparks interest. It sparks people to look at it, to start thinking about, well, what could go there? What would make sense there? What would be beneficial? And that's how you develop a redevelopment plan, which in essence takes all of that and puts it together. So this is the first step. It does not, I'm going to say it one more time because it's worth saying until no one brings it up again. This does not tear down the buildings, throw out any tenants, close any businesses, change anything, destroy the nature of the town. All it says is these two lots should be redeveloped, period, end of sentence. If there's a new chapter or a new paragraph, there's a whole new process that everyone gets to join in and comment. The redevelopment plan for Quimby, Mayor, you know this because you used to come to special meetings, took over a year. Took over a year and a half with a lot of sub meetings and committee meetings and
public surveys. We got public surveys on that piece as well.
It was not done 5 days after we declared it an area in need of redevelopment. It was thought about and contemplated and worried about. The same process, I'm sure this council will demand that of their professionals, that we look at everything and understand everything before a redevelopment plan is presented.
And there were several.
Including things like traffic studies, which wouldn't otherwise be necessary.
Studies, utilities, layout, affordable housing, all those things.
So if a developer, you say it's in redevelopment, developer says, hey, yeah, I want to redevelop that. They need to do that all on their own financially?
Yes. Yes, correct.
That's good to know. Thank you.
So let me state the way that we have the Quimby arrangement set up. That is the case scenario.
Okay. So there will be time for us to, for townspeople, and just to the people who have made a point that they live in Bernardsville and that most people in Bernardsville agree. If they had attended the July meeting, almost everybody there was from Bernardsville. And many people might not have known about this. I know you do the best you can. I'm on another board. I know it's difficult sometimes. We just changed a meeting as well. But I wouldn't have even, I'm on vacation. I never would have known about this had somebody not texted me. Yeah. And I do appreciate the work you do. Like I said, I too am a board volunteer, so I get that.
So I'm obviously on vacation today too, right? That's why you have a.
All right. Thank you very much.
Can people hear me?
Can I speak?
No, wait a minute. I think we are done with, if you've already spoken, we're not having second comebacks.
Okay, because
Yeah,
I raised.
I haven't spoken.
Okay.
I haven't spoken yet.
There are two iPhones that are not and raised, but they're talking now.
So who's iPhone 2?
Me.
That
Me.
says Maria. Is that Maria Nato?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Maria Nadal. Did you want to speak?
That's me.
Where do you live?
Can I speak?
Yeah. Just
Okay.
tell us where you live.
So I'm not being disrespectful and I appreciate all the hard work that everybody's doing. But I just want to say that the Quimby Village and a lot of the people that are the owners of properties don't want to sell their properties. And
We just got to stop you for a second. Before you can begin, can you just restate your name and address a little slower so we get you for the record, please? She's muted now.
Hi, can anyone hear me?
can you hear me?
Yeah, we got Maria. Just
Can you hear me?
Well,
Can you hear me? Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. So the reason that I wanted to speak is because when the car wash man was talking about his business and all, what's happening is it's not so much that there's.
we're gonna lose her hand.
Let's go with the next person.
There's an iPhone 2.
Yeah, hi. This is Eric Colwell at 101 Campbell. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Bernardsville born and raised. Born on Sunset, live up on Campbell Road currently. I'll be honest with you. This is a difficult one for me personally. I did listen to the planning board. I was born and raised, and nobody wants to see better change in Bernardsville more than I do, and I mean that sincerely. I would agree with some of the callers that I'm not sure the way that you've all been treated tonight is the way that I'd want to see that. At the same time, I did listen to what I believe to be Burnsville residents, who is your planning board, and I was actually surprised in a unilateral decision to say that the current recommendation didn't seem to be up to muster to them. Now I understand the one gentleman from the council voted in favor of it, which I can understand too. But I just want to pause because I wasn't going to weigh in at all because I'm just so curious to how all this is going. But I toward the end, there was a flurry of Burnsville residents that kind of voted their support for the council. And I want to do that too. I just think that there's a fair amount yet to be debated on this topic is all. And I didn't want to weigh in at all. I just felt compelled based on the flurry of last minute, votes in favor of what's happening. And I can honestly say, I think that there needs to be a lot more debate, especially since there is a, very independent council who are very knowledgeable about these issues and we're at odds with this report. So before the township does anything, or the borough does anything, I'm just hoping that there can be a larger forum where, multiple viewpoints can be expressed before this comes to a vote. And I appreciate your consideration for taking this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we get Maria back?
Maria's.
I'm here,
Give us your name and address.
Maria Nadell, and it's 1 Windsor Lane in Bedminster. And I just want to say, I know that you're all doing a really good job and you're working hard at all of this. And I'm not being disrespectful in any way, but I need to say what I need to say. It's upsetting to me that you have to understand how the people feel, because the property owners, most of them do not want to sell. And so the tenants are crazy. And the way that the car wash man was talking, and I can't remember what his name was, but when he was talking and saying that everybody thinks they're going out of business, and what they've been hearing is, we're not going to have a choice in a couple of years, that eminent domain is going to take over. People are really upset about it. It's not just the people that are working in the businesses, it's the people that are going in and servicing the businesses. I was always in Bernardsville for 30 something years, way before I ever moved up here. And I've been here for 12 years in the area, and I'm in Bernardsville every day. I go to all the businesses there. So I understand how they feel. And that's what the upset is. It's not so much, we're all wanting the town to be beautiful. We want beautification. We want things to be fixed up, but people don't want to feel that their businesses are going to be taken away, or that the, value of their business is going to go down. That's basically all I have to say. So sorry for upsetting anybody, but that's it. It had to be said.
No, I think that last statement, I think everyone in this council sympathizes and agrees with. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I can tell you that is a common and frequent conversation.
But do you understand it? I know that you're saying it. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
no, I completely understand it. And that's the reason why we are having protracted public input and comment. The reason why the last redevelopment plan took 1.5 years, because we want and we sympathize and we understand.
And we were at the meetings initially. And when they initially talked, they never talked about we would have to sell, or that was going to be part of it, or that people were going to be moved. Yeah. That was not part of any discussion that was ever had until after the fact.
And that discussion still stands. There is not a discussion about eminent domain, about taking any business or property within this council right now. It's definitive.
I know that it's not in the council now, but it was put in that document with the developer.
It is not, eminent domain is not part of any document this council has ever prepared.
So that 120 document that said that after 2 years, if they didn't have the people ready, willing, and able to sell, that they could possibly potentially use eminent domain. That's not a real document.
Jack, is there a document that the council has produced that mentions the possibility of eminent domain? I'm asking my council attorney.
I'm just gonna step in, check, is that it's the redevelopment agreement on Quimby Lane, so point. of
Yes.
Maria has been talking solely about Quimby, her comments, and not about Palmer, which is
right.
Topic, just to keep everyone on. In the redevelopment agreement, there is a paragraph that says, and if it wasn't in there, it still would be true, that the redeveloper could come back and ask the council to reconsider whether or not it would use its power of eminent domain. Whether that's in that document or not, somebody can always come and ask the council if they would use the power of eminent domain. To do that, you have to go to the beginning and start a whole long, arduous process.
And the important part of what you just said, Joe, is they would have to ask the council, and that conversation would happen in full public.
Yeah, and I believe the language actually goes so far to say, and the decision to do that is within the sole discretion of the council and not the developer. So they can ask, but that's as far as they get to go. They don't get to cajole, convince, pay, recommend, or anything else. They just ask. And then the council, which is the same for any project, quite frankly.
The same way
So
if somebody
then-
asks for a tax abatement.
So then we don't have to worry about the eminent domain happening. So
Correct.
everybody should stop worrying is basically what you're saying.
Make my life easier if we did that. So if we can do that, I'm all for it.
Okay, thank
Let me
Okay.
rephrase. I have no interest as a council member in voting for such things.
Great. That's a good thing. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for your time.
Mike, would you like to speak?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Hi there, Mike and Haley from 21 Liberty,
Bernardsville.
Bernardsville,
Last name?
Inella. Can I speak?
Yes.
Hi there. So I guess ultimately we are residents of Bernardsville. We've been here for a year now. We both grew up in Mendham. So we love this town so much. We have fallen in love with it even more. We can't wait to, grow our lives here and continue to grow and run a business in this town as well. I think when we consider things like the Fifth Amendment and all the eminent domain and what we want for this town and our future is to maintain the integrity. And I think what has been so shocking and sad is the lack of integrity, insulting people's businesses for cooking eggs in a microwave or whatever it is, and insulting the council for trying to come up, just shows a lack of integrity. And I think what we want is to hear how we're going to support those businesses. How are we going to support those people in our community? And how are we going to get that support back and what it's going to look like? And how are we going to maintain the integrity of this community? Because that's what we want. We want to feel safe. We want to feel like our businesses are respected. And we want to grow in this community. It's a wonderful place to live. We're so blessed. We're so incredibly blessed. And so going forward, I think that to consider the integrity of our community is just really ultimately, I think, the most important part of all of this. So that's all we wanted to say. We just wanted to throw 2 cents in over here. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Nobody knew.
Okay, since there's nobody that hasn't spoken that wants to, I'm going to close the public session. There is another one at the end of the meeting, so there'll be another opportunity, and we're going to move on with our agenda. So right now we have I will open the public hearing on ordinance 2022-1926. Actually, we're continuing the public hearing, because we're waiting for the planning board. Yes, okay. Concerning fines for ordinance violations and amending Article 2 of the Borough Code entitled Administration and Article 16 of the Borough Land Development Regulations entitled Violations and Penalties. Would anyone like to be heard on this ordinance?
The planning board did find that the fine is just the master plan.
Yeah.
The reporting is, in fact.
Yes, yeah, but it's not, right, yes, so that's why we had, we didn't do it last.
Oh, right, well, I think you said we didn't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
All right, so I'll close the public hearing. Gina, you want to be there?
I move to pass ordinance 2022-1926 on final reading and adopt as published.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Ambeline?
Yes.
Ms. Mayfield?
Yes.
Mr. McCready?
Yes.
Mr. McQueen?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Okay, I will open the public hearing on ordinance 2022-1928, appropriating the sum of $72,000 for the various improvements to the wastewater treatment plant facilities. Would anyone like to be heard on this ordinance? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Danny, you want to?
I move to pass ordinance 2022-1928 on final reading and adopt as published.
I'll second, but I have questions, Mayor.
Roll call, please. Oh, yes. Oh, you have questions?
Yes, Tom, I don't believe that this made it to the Finance Committee. Is this coming out of capital fund? I know it's needed. Just talk to me about the flow of the revenue source.
Sewer capital fund.
Yeah, we did ask that at Public Works.
Yeah.
And that's what they can.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't remember us discussing it in, it's a larger sum of money. So I just want to make sure that we are within budget. So thank you.
Oh, you second, so now we need a roll call.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Mr. McQueen?
Yes.
Mr. McCready?
Yes.
Ms. Mayfield?
Yes.
Mr. Ambeline?
Yes.
All right, I will open the public hearing on ordinance 2022-1929, appropriating the sum of $35,000 for the Phil Hill Pump Station valve and pump impeller replacement project. With anyone, and I'm assuming this is also from the dedicated sewer account. So, anyone from the public wish to be heard on this? We're not seeing any. I will close the public hearing. Now.
Yep, I move to pass ordinance 2022-1929 on final reading and adopt as published.
Second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ambeline?
Yes.
Ms. Mayfield?
Yes.
Ms. McCready?
Yes.
Mr. McQueen?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Jen, you want to move the next one?
I move that ordinance 2022-1930 and ordinance establishing perimeter fence regulations and supplementing and amending Article 12 of the Borough Land Development Regulation entitled zoning be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning at 7 p.m. Monday, September 12th, 2022.
Second. All of any discussion?
So, first of all, I want to thank, what was the committee that pulled this? The housing committee for pulling this together. I think we should have a public hearing on this and have a discussion about it in a month. I would ask, I think that the threshold to make a change to the zoning ordinance like this should be that we understand what it's going to fix. So I think that I would just ask that if this is something that we feel needs to pass, I think we need to understand what's not working right now.
Yeah.
In example, we don't have to discuss that tonight, but I would ask that for my support on this, I'd want to understand where we have deficits that we need to fix with further regulation. So that,
Jay, I'm sort of with you. I read it very carefully, and if I was going to write a fence ordinance this is pretty close to what I would write. But yeah, we're very interested in that discussion.
Yeah, we can give you the backup. Jeff Horowitz put a lot of time into doing the research, and I know he had pictures and explanations, so I'll ask him to share that. And we have, so we have backup on that.
But Jay, I think I heard you correctly. I think you were calling for public opinion on this. I'm very interested to see what the public feels on this particular ordinance as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to move to a public hearing so we can hear that.
There is.
Yeah.
But-
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an ordinance, so there has
Yeah.
to be-
It's an ordinance, so it has to have a public hearing. Yeah. Okay, I have a second.
And it has to go to the planning board.
Oh, and it has to.
It has to be returned to the planning
Yeah,
board.
we're just gonna refer to the planning board anyway. We're gonna discuss it. Right.
I would expect some changes.
They, well, except Jeff Horton, I'm sure he'll be, he's on the planning board. Yeah, he's kind of the.
I did add the two things that the council asked, giving some discretion to the zoning officer.
Yes.
To act in the street and right away.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I saw that, Jack, and thank you. I thought it was well worded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. Go back to Howard. The next one.
I move ordinance 2022-31, approving the application and financial agreement for tax exemption pursuant to the long-term tax exemption law with Brook Road Urban Renewal Associates LP for the construction of a residential project located at 18 Mount Airy Road, block 124, lot 1, Brook Road, block 80, lot 15.38, and 63 Bernards Ave, block 102, lot 12, be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning at 7 p.m. To be determined.
I think we will table this.
Yes, this is the ordinance approving a pilot agreement for RPM in connection with the scattered sites. And they would be tax exempt in any event. But what this does is allows them to apply for tax credits. This is just first reading. It has not yet been reviewed by the CFO.
Right, but it's a blank, and it says public hearing be scheduled a public meeting at 7 p.m. Should I just say at to be determined time, let it publicly announced?
Well, that's because RPM needs it adopted this month. In order to apply for tax credits this round.
So at a meeting to be scheduled before the end of the month.
Correct. And that's why it's left blank is because we need a special meeting. It could be a Zoom meeting, it could be at 8 in the morning, whatever. But in order to submit your application for this year's tax credits, they need to have it adopted prior to September 1st. There's also going to be a resolution we put off for the next meeting when the ordinance is adopted. Will complement this ordinance. But that's the intent, is to make the properties tax exempt. And it's a free property across the street, it's the Ammerman parking lot, and 63 Bernard Ave.
Got it.
Jack, a follow-up question on this. So look, I've already expressed my displeasure with the state law on fair share housing legislation and what they make us do. I see a very complex table in regards to the pilot that has to be put in place. Is that calculation mandated by state law?
And that's why I'd like Leslie Roberts to review it.
Absolutely.
And give her more qualified opinion. It's already been reviewed by Dan Levin from CGPNH, who is our consultant. And, you know, he's found it to be acceptable. But maybe we have a special meeting, both Leslie and Dan Levin can attend.
Okay. All right, so.
I'd like to set a date tonight, set a date for, and I left it to tonight because I thought it was easy to try to schedule a special meeting with everybody in person as opposed to trying to do email back and forth. And I hate to do this to you, but we just,
like right now, or?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you right now?
It's Monday the 22nd, and who's on vacation if you are.
How about the 29th?
Well,
I'm out, but as long as you can call me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would probably be a.
Yeah, we need a quorum.
Yeah.
Which is at least 3 council members in the mayor.
But I can make the 29th as long as it's Zoom. I can follow, I don't know, but I want to pretty sure it's in Mondays. Yeah.
So there'll be a Zoom meeting at 7 o'clock on August 29th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that night, perfect. No, that would be good.
Yeah. Okay, make it any time.
Yeah. No, that would be good.
So like, then what I said for 7 PM on Monday, August 29th.
Via Zoom.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I was muted. I'll offer my eye.
Moving on
Yes,
to.
thank you, sorry.
Thank you. No, that's a good explanation. Moving on to resolutions. We're pulling 167.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to pull out 22-165, please.
And we're pulling off the agenda of 162 because we did get a proposal, but we need to review it. Discussions with the attorney.
Okay.
So it's not ready for consideration.
We're not gonna act on that at all.
Correct.
And are we not acting on 167, Tom, or are we just pulling it off to discuss?
No, we're not acting. Yeah, we're pulling that thing.
Okay, so those two are off, 167 and 162.
I think Chad has said 165.
Yeah,
you want
165, please.
you want to just discuss it now before we rest?
I'm sorry. Same special meeting as the ordinance that we just introduced.
Okay.
It's 167. That we're not ready to discuss tonight.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
so 162 will be on the meeting for the 20th. Got it.
So that's not being voted on tonight. 167 was pulled.
Right,
Correct.
so both of those are off. So Chad, you had questions on?
Yeah, no, look, I remember, obviously, there was a police car in this budget line. Did something happen, Tom? Did a car break down? What's the need to purchase another vehicle?
This was in the capital budget. As
Was.
a replacement vehicle for the zoning and inspection team.
Okay,
I would note, we got a considerable grant for this as well.
okay.
Yeah, and it'll be our first municipal electric vehicle.
Well, I was going to suggest that I'm sure our environmental committee would be very happy that we are purchasing an electric vehicle, not a combustion engine.
And I would say that I looked at the price. I was very impressed with how reasonably priced it was.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, and I just have to commend Kathy Redley for doing all the work on the grant. And the credits and everything like that that's involved. I'm just glad she was enthusiastic and ran with it.
Yeah.
Great.
So Tom, I know that in past discussions, we've had to discuss infrastructure for electric charging stations. I see in this proposal, there is revenue to install some kind of a charging station. Does this meet any type of global need for the borough?
Now, it's just going to be mounted on the side of the DPW garage.
Okay.
Where we designated parking stall just for this car, and it's a level 2. So it'll charge over the weekend and take care of us for the week.
All right, thank you.
Perfect. All right, so then we are moving 161A and B, not 162, and then 163, 164, 165, 166, 168, all the way through 171. So just without those two for a while. Yeah.
So I move that resolutions 22-161A and B, and then 22-163 through 171, with the exception of 167, be adopted.
Second. You did that very well. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Rivera.
Yes.
Mr. McQueen.
Yes.
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 Mr. Adeline.
Yes.
All right. Mayor's report. So, let's see, July 17th, I attended the community in Bryce's barbecue. They're just doing amazing things over there. They put in a garden, they've got just a lot going on. They are using, it's called Community in Connection, where they're sponsoring a lot of activities, to not just for people in recovery, but people who have family members in recovery. So they're just amazing work over there. I attended a webinar from the Mayor's Wellness Campaign that they're rolling out some new tools that I'm going to share with our committee when we get back up in September. We met Tom and John McDowell and again Doug. We all met with Rubenetti and the engineers. We're talking about the bridge to the Rose Bowl that they're going to be building. I attended the downtown Bernardsville community meeting, which was at the theater. They've not that many people attended, but as usual, Olivia did an amazing job covering all the activities that are coming up. And then they had a movie afterwards, which was well attended, John Ford movie. I met with John Tober for an Eagle Scout badge. We have a couple of Eagle Scouts coming up. Doug and I and Tom met with representatives from New Jersey Department of, no, was it DOT? Yeah, DOT, right? To start the process for the Boylan Terrace walkway. The money has been transferred from the federal government to the state, and now we have to go through a process of certification with NJDOT to get that project to make sense. But it's the first step, and it's going. We're gonna, it's gonna happen. Tom and I also met with Downtown Bernardsville's design committee to go over their museums in the street project, which I think will be really impressive. Where you have commemorative signs for all the historic places in town, and they'll have a like a digital tour that you can follow on your own. And they're doing that project through the grant that they got, that $75,000 grant. So you'll hear more about that. We had a recognition ceremony for our lifeguard, Gil Ferreira, who made an incredible rescue at the pool. I also attended the Recreation Camp Art Show. Mr. Mack does an amazing job with those kids. We had the Peach Festival, the Farmers Market, not this Saturday, the one before, which was very well attended, and Madeline was doing a wonderful job taking over for Ed. I met with Evan Donahue for his Eagle Scout badge, and I think I've convinced him to do kiosks for our trail as a Eagle project. So fingers crossed that happens. National Night Out was phenomenal for those of you that were there. Police department did an incredible job. Tom was there. They really pulled out all the stops, had a lot of good information, a lot of good groups there, organizations. They got a lot of really, our businesses really stepped up and supported it. So it was really well done. And then we had an OEM meeting with clergy just this past week to see how the different church congregations can help us with emergency management, and they were very excited, very supportive. So you're going to be hearing more about that. And that is my report. Tom, do you have anything?
There, you covered a lot, and I suspect that
I covered all yours.
Yeah, I suspect Councilwoman Greenfield's gonna handle much of our infrastructure work that we've been doing.
Yeah.
The one thing that I keep meaning to put on for presentations, and we will, is if you recall, we had an issue last year with the ordinance for individual storm and water management permits.
Yeah.
And there was like a compliance thing, and what council decided that they're going to divide the county to thirds and really do a concentrated effort. And so we did our first third, and I think we're at 99.99% compliance. And it just allowed us to take a more diplomatic, constructive approach. And next year we'll move on to the second.
Excellent. Thank you. And then we have the monthly reports. Would someone like to move to accept them?
I'll move to accept the monthly reports, Mayor.
Okay. Now seconded, so all in favor?
Aye.
We have our attorney report, public safety, and that, yes, we did meet, we first, thank you, Mayor, for recognizing, that we put out that the crosswalk is complete. It still needs the curb cuts, but the crosswalk from the, outer edge of the train station by Somerset Grain and Feed across to, the Power Training Center, laundromat is complete. So thank you very much for the DOT for getting that done. And hopefully we'll get a curb cut soon. I was gonna mention National Night Out, but we did that already. So, the only other thing I'll mention is that, we talked about the park ordinances that we have. And we requested we referred them to the rec committee. And Chad and Bob, Markovitz, the rec director, have already recognized and have committed to reviewing all of the park ordinances for consistency and you know, what's allowed and not allowed. And obviously there'll be differences called out, but it seems like we have some disparate ordinances that just need to be pulled together. So we'll work on that. Great. Thank you. Finance, Chad?
Yeah, so we met several times. Actually, there's some material things for me to report to the group this month. Number one, I know that the Bernards Ave and surrounding areas is an important capital project for this council. It's been illustrated in multiple public meetings. However, it does create a significant budgetary problem as it relates to our debt reduction plan. We actually had two conversations on this in our most recent. What we're going to recommend, and this may have made it to Public Works already, is that we're going to try to move forward with the Bernards Ave and surrounding areas. However, when this comes to council, we're going to restructure our debt plan and remove a debt allowance for 2024 and 2025, which makes it net neutral on the debt plan. Does everybody understand what I'm saying and meaning?
Instead of 1 year, 2 years, that we talked about.
So if we front load debt to finish Bernards Ave, what the finance committee is going to recommend is that we remove any debt allowance for 2024 and 2025, which essentially is $1.1 million of new net new debt that we would have incurred during those years. So from a council perspective, this means capital projects will be limited to cash on hand for those 2 fiscal calendar years.
So we're not then waiting for the grant for the neighboring?
Well, so what we talked, so new facts change decisions, Gina. So if we move forward with plans, get shovels in the ground and grants come through, then we have the ability to revisit the past decision and go back to the $500,000 a year of net new debt if those grants come through.
Just to add, we're not going to bank on the grant. If it comes to fruition, it's a good guy on our budget.
Yeah, it'll offset.
Right.
But does everyone understand the impact? So essentially what we're saying is we can move this project forward, but it means unless grants come through, no net new debt for 2 years.
And what's the reason for pushing this through and not waiting for the grant? We actually have the first grant. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. One other word is that it's the neighboring town. Yes.
Streets.
Yeah, the neighboring streets. Yes, thank you.
So under the current capital plan, we have sufficient funds to cover Bernards Ave in the neighborhoods. So we hope to have that ordinance for introduction in September. So that was planned for, but what Chad was saying is that future years, next 2 years, any new debt, and I just want to be clear, Chad, you just meant for roads. Yes.
Yeah, so we allotted $500,000 of new debt annually for 2024 and 2025 that we would remove from the debt plan to cover the front load.
And if it does, and we're pretty confident it will, that'll free up some money so we can reallocate some additional beyond Bernards neighborhood.
But it's likely not guaranteed, Gina. So I always work from a worst case scenario backwards. So we plan for worst case scenario, then if we have good news, we have good news.
Yeah, I'd just like to see what are we then limiting ourselves to and what are the state of those roads? Because I know when I was on Public Works, we were trying to make sure that we got all of our roads to at least an 80.
and above. So I'd just like to see where we are with the other roads and what that would do to the normal plan that we were trying to implement.
Just to that bridge, Public Works and Finance. Public Works, Doug and John absolutely thought we were okay for 1 year. We didn't talk about it. We said 1 year shouldn't be a problem. We've done a great job of filling the paving. We know that this is a priority. Chad worked with Leslie and Tom. I think it was a great solution to kind of come up with a budget neutral way of doing this. I do think it probably has to just, we have to ask the question, Diane, to Doug and to John, just to make sure there isn't a, extremely negative impact now that we've been potentially 2 years.
But if we do get the grant money, that could pick up that second year.
Yes. If we get a grant, that changes the facts and then we can revisit.
Okay. Can we take that to public works? Yeah, we're already discussing. Just set it there. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Chad.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, do we need to discuss the other headwind at this point, or is that an item for executive?
No, I think you're free to mention it. Which one?
Okay.
What, did you want me to talk about it?
If you're, I can mention it. I couldn't hear you. So you say I'm free to mention it, Tom?
Yes.
Okay. So the other issue is we've been notified by the state health plan that our premiums are going up and that number may be significant. We'll know, I believe, August 11th, what the impact would be. And then we have a series of finance committee meetings to discuss next steps.
And Chad, just to clarify a little bit, we weren't specifically notified, all municipalities.
Yes.
Notified.
Yes, everyone that's in the state health benefits plan is getting a huge increase. So we have reached out to our broker to see if there's a way that we can change plans or alter or whatever, but we are working on it. Is there any way to combine services with other towns? We've gone through that.
Yeah, Diane, we're exploring all options.
They're looking at, in like shared funds like our gym, but yeah, they want health insurance fund. So a lot of it depends on our loss ratio. Where we can go. Christina's not here. Anybody else on personnel?
We had a personnel meeting, Tom. I don't think there was anything really relevant to report. It was just an update from you.
Just an update on how recent hires are doing and the structure working out.
All right, Diane, it's short. Okay, Public Works last met on July 19th, but this update's gonna be last week. 2022 mill and paves, the 2022 mill and paves have been completed, 8 roads for a total of 3.2 miles. The striping will be completed, hopefully tomorrow. The pickleball court, currently working on drainage, bioswale, and conduit is being installed. And there's a new delivery date of August 24th for the in-ground electrical vaults. That's replacement because we had to replace the pole. Dam project, New Jersey DEP dam safety has been updated as to our progress, and preliminary plans are due on October 21st, 2022. Update on the mountaintop supplemental drainage project. The bid was advertised on August 4th. Bid will be opened on August 25th, and the bid will be awarded on September 12th. Wow, good jobs. Okay, do we have any liaison reports? Yes.
Board of Health. We met on July 18th, so it's been a little while, but health officers report, which said May and June were busy months. What was the beginning of full season, so a lot of inspection, few small complaints, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. The board thought there was an inquiry around a potential asking if we could locate, if somebody could locate a cigar smoke shop in the borough. We didn't have any information on where, what type, is it allowed, nothing. So we asked the administrator to go back and get more information, potentially have the applicant come in front of the Board of Health and discuss something like that. There was that discussion around funding around health departments being cut around the state based on the state budget. They decided it ended up becoming a moot issue because the state passed the budget without restoring those cuts. They're going to continue to monitor it, the municipalities, especially on top of it. And if something comes back up, the Board of Health will take action and recommend to the council. And then there's still even virtual debating whether we move back in person at some point.
Planning board met Mary Jane.
Yeah, we're not talking about that yet.
Environmental Commission met, on July 13th. I'll just give a couple themes. There's a focus right now on what we consider pollinator gardens, which I think, given some of the lack of rain over the past couple of weeks, is important to look at. The other piece I would say is just to recognize a couple people on the committee. The gardens that they put in for the high school, people are hauling water over there like by car to continue to make sure that those are watered. I know that it's a couple of people on the committee, so just thanks to everybody in that committee for keeping those going. I never thought I would see in a committee report that they're looking to put a "Don't Pee on Me" sign for the dogs on their gardens. So thanks very much to the environment. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I'll just give a quick mention for the library. We did meet, and they're just searching for a new replacement director. I'm sure who left us back in June. We do have a part-time interim person, but we are pleased that there was somebody that came in last night. Sorry, forgive me for not remembering. But yeah, she only wanted to stay 60 days, 90 days, something like that. So they're really trying to find someone for the term. All right, items of business. This was for a music shoot. Well, let's discuss this. I was sitting. I was right. So talk amongst yourself.
It's for next week.
16th. Yeah, the 16th, 17th.
Yeah, it's for an overnight, 7 p.m. 6 to 7 a.m. Over at the middle school and the basketball courts. And there might be someone online from this organization. I was given the name of Clint Pang. I don't see that name there. Is anyone there from the?
I mean,
hi. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Julie. I'm speaking on behalf of Clint because he couldn't come. I'm the producer of the music video. Nice to meet you all. I just wanted to let you know of sort of an update on our production schedule. We had to move our dates in Bernardsville from the 17th to the 18th at night instead of the 16th to the 17th. And we were wondering if that would be okay. So it would just be the next night.
What day of the week is that? It's Wednesday into Thursday.
Yes, so it would still be the same time, but just the day after.
I have one question about this.
Yes.
Did we verify, Tom C, did you check with Bob Markowick to see that area was not being used by a recreation department?
I checked that out for the 16th and the 17th. Now I will check with him for the 17th and the 18th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Are there restroom facilities for these people? Or back by the tennis court?
I've had for John and Cal that there are photos of John over there by the tennis court.
That they can.
That are on the subject.
That's fine. I just want to make sure that it was.
What's the impact from, like, I'm assuming I don't know anything about movie production, but there's lighting and potential music.
I would say if council is inclined to approve this, I would make it subject to the direction of the police department.
Okay.
In terms of any nuisance abatement control.
And Captain Runyon met with them and I saw the report and he said that the lighting that they're proposing and the noise, that it shouldn't be a problem, but that was enforced.
Because it's overnight. Yeah.
Do we need to do any kind of vote for this, or can go ahead?
Yeah, I think we're going to consensus. We can go ahead.
It sounds like we covered all bases.
Yes.
Yeah, I think subject to the police, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're also providing insurance, naming the borough as an additional insured and also signing a whole harmless agreement, which they give me the whole harmless already, but the insurance over time. But now I guess the dates have to change though on that, I'll set with the police, to get that new date, the bottom market also, if the new date, has any impact with anything going on.
And we talked to the school as well.
Oh, great.
She did write that properly, so they were fine.
Good luck.
You can work our motto, small town
So-
community. Yeah.
So Julia, are you guys just using key and fill lighting, or are you doing some kind of a broader scale diesel fueled area light?
Most of our lights are gonna be LED and battery powered, so there's
Okay.
there won't be any like stingers running through the streets. So that won't be a problem.
Are they going to
And,
be on camera, or are you guys going to set up an official set with keys and fill?
no, the lights won't be on camera. They'll be used to light the scene. Yes.
So, look, as somebody who works in this industry, so long as they aren't doing, the types of lights that would be on a football field, for example, for area lighting,
Oh,
the light will be condensed to the area that they're filming.
yes.
Chad, the captain and the police department reviewed this in terms of nuisance. If that helps.
Yeah. Do we get invited to a premiere screening?
Totally. Yes, for sure. I'll send you the link and everything if that's something you're interested in.
Okay.
So pending, obviously, that it's not in use by the record director.
Right, yeah, that was a different date, I will check that out with the record.
Okay, right. Community crisis is asking for ribbons again. They do every year. August 31st is Overdose Awareness Day, and then September is Recovery Month. They also usually do a really nice ceremony on August 31st, so if you're around, stop by. Yes. We all do that?
Yes.
Yes.
And they did say that they'll remove them in time, I mean, at the end of the, right at the end of the month. It's nice they ask, some people just put them on, yeah. Appointments, this is my appointment of Marcus Dixon to Shade Tree, which I thought was wonderful, and somebody who gives some new volunteers. On Nick Baglio, I had originally sent to Green Team, which then I found out the Green Team hasn't met in 2 years. Bob Baker, who was the chair, I think he said he doesn't have time to meet, and now there's a new director at the Audubon, and I know he was very involved. So Johanna has graciously offered, and Christine is the council rep, to meet with the new Audubon director and see, if we can kind of regenerate that committee. In the meantime, though, Krista McDonald, who's on environmental, has asked to step down and just be a consultant. So my suggestion was then that Nick take her place on environmental commission, and he was agreeable to that, and Johanna was as well.
That's a matter of fun as well.
That's my appointment as
Yes.
well. Okay, so instead of Green Team, let's make it environmental commission. All right, yeah. Green Team was the council, so we don't have to do that.
Correct.
We just decommissioned the Green Team.
Or maybe have.
Well, the thing is, the Green Team works on, maybe really, because then it's in a place, the environmental commission is established by ordinance. So you'd have to redo the ordinance to incorporate them somehow, or that's actually a commission.
It's a commission authorized by state law.
Yeah, so we can't really.
So we can't change
Yeah.
the parameters.
But the Green Team has always worked on our sustainable New Jersey certification, which we really want to keep. If not, move up from silver to whatever the next level is. So
But if council, get a subcommittee of environmental. We can talk about it.
I don't can't find it under the law. So, Johanna and Christine have offered to try and see if they can get going and get some new people. So for right now, it's just on hold.
I think we're able to do that for HVAC, so.
Yeah.
It's something that.
Yeah. Sorry, we got them back up in front. Yep, thank you, Diane. The League of Municipalities Conference is November 15th to 17th. Registration is open now, and if you don't book now, sometimes you can't get a hotel room. So if you want to go 1 day, 2 days, the whole time, Anthony needs to send in the registration for us. The hotel we usually book on our home and get reimbursed, but the registration for the conference we usually do as a group, because then they send the badges and all that. So please let everybody know if you want to attend. It's really what I think it's very worthwhile. They have some really good courses. Big vendor, I was amazing how many different people are out there with cool things from municipalities. You get a lot of competitive ideas.
If you attend the seminar put on by the municipal excess liability insurance fund, in past years, they reimburse us for the entire conference.
Wow, that's nice. Yeah. Then they usually do legislative updates. It's really a good educational. And you can get credits towards. I forget what it is. I got the second one. I can go for the third one. Anyway,
There is just a very relevant to tonight's conversation. Dean of the Rutgers Planning School gives an update on how much vacant retail and commercial office space there is in the state. And like what the challenges are in filling it and what the trends are. So I think it's very eye-opening to listen to that data analyzed.
yeah, it'd be interesting to see where we fit in. Okay, any unfinished business?
Yeah, Mary Jane, I just have one issue. And it would be really quick. Tom, I know that we're bringing the Bernards and Avon surrounded areas, I think next council meeting. Could you also have Leslie bring the debt plan with the red line of how we're going to change the approach so the council's fully aware? Thank you.
Okay. Any new business? All right. It's now our second open session for any of the items that were not listed for a public hearing. So is anyone in the public wish to be heard that didn't have a chance to speak on the first round? All right, then I will close the public hearing, and we have several items to discuss in the executive room, attorney-client privilege and contract negotiations.
Yes, I have two brief items that are really related, just about in clarification of the zoning, two sections of the zoning, minor sections of the zoning ordinance for Renee.
Okay, so we will not be coming back out. We have nothing to act on.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so do I have a motion to go to executive session?
I'll move us to executive session, Mayor.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
We are so.
We're still live, out of the